Well, good morning. Today is a day that we've long waited for, the 30th of December, 2025, which is very nearly the beginning of a new year, and yet at the same time, a perfect time to close out the year 2025. Looks like I need to change my view, don't I? Let's see here. Go. I'm so delighted today to have the opportunity to welcome all of you to the Healing Shift. This is a project that both Teresa and I have been working on, and it's been such a labor of love for both of us, but especially for Teresa. It seems like what we're about now is really clarifying our message and assisting people in their listening. Because as we know, all of the power is in the listening, it's in the listener. So here we are, we're listeners now, and we're just open to hearing something new. Something, maybe the words have been said before, but not in exactly the same way. And at the same time, we still have to say there's nothing new under the sun. What we're talking about today has always existed, and yet we really haven't had the common language to be able to describe it in the most direct way. And finally, that language is here. So I welcome you to the Healing Shift. I know that our profession has really endured a lot in the last 4 years, and that a lot of us have had concerns about continuing. What I feel is that this is the most exciting time that we've ever had in the profession, ever, that we've ever had in the profession. And I'm just reminded again at this moment what Florence Nightingale told us, that it would be 150 years before people would see the kind of nursing that she envisioned. Well, that year was 2020, and here we are. So it's up to us, it's our opportunity now to rewrite the definition of nursing and the work that nurses do. Teresa?
Well, I love that. Every time I hear that, I think, oh, here we are on the leading edge of nursing again. And I went to a presentation for the Texas Nurses Association, and the keynote talked about all the things that nursing has brought to the world, which was the Red Cross. We brought occupational therapy when the polio epidemic was here. Well, that turned into its own profession. Nurses used to be in charge of respiratory therapy. That turned into its own profession. And so what it kind of looks like now is nurses borrow from all other professions, but really the knowledge came from nurses. So I think what Florence Nightingale was talking about is the kind of nursing that she envisioned is what we're doing now, but we're calling it nurse coaching. We're taking all of the knowledge base that nurses have and sharing it with the world. We're not asking permission. We're not saying, oh, it's for someone else. We're saying this is nursing. And it does come down to the presence of who we are, of what we bring to the table. A lot of skills that people can't really see, but everyone can feel. And it is in the feeling of what nursing does that is the magic. And so when Lynn was talking about listening is important because it's through listening that we understand each other and what being human really is. And we're so busy-minded that sometimes we forget that listening is a skill to listen beyond the words, to hear the thing about another person or even yourself that gives you information to live your life with. And that's the part of us, I think, that we're touching in this class today. Um, we will be talking a lot about thought, not as thought, what you think, but the power of thought to create, the power of thought that we are using every single day and is completely invisible to us. And learning to listen from that space is what nurse coaching is. It's that place where we can touch a human spirit and say, guess what? You are perfectly healthy in this moment, even if it doesn't look like it. Nurses know that. Have you ever looked at a patient who you knew was not doing well and you knew that somewhere inside there somebody they could get better, but it took their own belief to do that, their own knowledge of how to do that. Or it also can be on the other end of the spectrum, how to let go of this life and transition to the next life. We don't judge people on where they are in their life. We help them no matter where they are. And so we'll talk a little bit about that today, because one of our students, she said, you could talk about thought a lot. And I'm like, yeah, because that's where we live. If we didn't have thought, we wouldn't experience anything. But understanding the power that we have and how it actually works literally does change the world. Changes you, it changes those around you, and it changes the people that we serve. So that's where we'll start the conversation today.
Is this our best time to introduce ourselves, Teresa? Or do you have that in the...
We can do that just in case
Okay.
somebody doesn't know who we are.
Okay, that's great. Well, my name's Lynn. I'm Lynn McCright, and I'm the founder, and along with Teresa, of Advancing Nurse Coaching, which started out as Advancing Holistic Health. And we've been in business now for 10 years, bringing this message to our public, our nurses. And what we are about now is just an extension of all the everything that we've learned in our history. In other words, my background happens to be in public health, and what I see now is that nursing is moving back into the community. It's always been in the community. Actually, the fastest growing area within the profession is home health. So I love the aspect of bringing all my past history into the current moment. And I will say that Teresa and I both are adjunct faculty at Texas Wesleyan University as well. But I'll let introduce Teresa introduce herself.
So my background is ICU. I was the director of cardiopulmonary rehab for a while. I transitioned into skilled nursing and said I would never do that when I was in nursing school, and absolutely loved it. I was like, oh, that's where you actually get to meet people. And then I opened a geriatric psych unit, and all my patients from my skilled nursing that I called a problem patient ended up as my first patients in my psych unit. And that's where I learned a lot about the human condition and behavior, and how when we actually see our humanness, people do heal. And then I transitioned over to post anesthesia recovery. I loved every moment in there because you get to see everything. While I was there in the post anesthesia recovery, I worked home health and opened a business and um, have just really loved all the aspects of nursing. So I don't know, that's kind of my journey, where I've been. And we take all those parts of it with us. I had a coach tell me one time, she goes, all you ever talk about is community. I think you should look there. And so here we are, who have some similar dreams and desires to share knowledge and help people. So that's where we are. That's how we landed here.
Well, and Teresa was talking about nursing starting to take respiratory therapy became its own field and so forth. And yeah, I've been just really privileged to be one of the early classes in both my baccalaureate program and in my master's program. I was became a geriatric nurse practitioner within 10 years of the very beginning of nurse practitioner program at the University of Colorado. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful journey. And we're just so glad to be here to share with all of you.
Thank you for being here. I think I'm going to put my slides up so we can go through a little bit what this day will look like. And of course, I even practiced doing this and now I can't do it, right? There we go. Can you see the slides?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Because I can't see what I'm looking for.
There, I think.
Yeah, 1 second. I know this is, there we go. Thank you. So the healing shift, this is a masterclass for nurses. And I just want you to know that when you change your thoughts, and you will change the world. So we'll talk about that a little bit, what that means and what that looks like. So today is, as it unfolds, we just did the little orientation. We're gonna set the foundation, which is pillar 1. Pillar 2 is insight. We'll have a little short break. I hope you all brought something to drink, a little snack if you need it. It is 4 hours, but it goes really fast. And then we're going to talk about presence and then sustainability of what nurse coaching can do for us as we move forward in our careers. And we will be making an invitation to our coursework and then our closing. So just so you have an idea of what the day is going to look like, if you want to take a little picture of that, you can, or you can just sit back and relax and then just enjoy.
And we're not going to take any official breaks other than one at the middle. So feel free to just move about and make yourself comfortable in any way that you need to, hydration, etc. So we're all big girls here, and it's just wonderful to be together. And everybody's got a different time schedule that they're on. So just make yourself comfortable as we go through the day.
So what this presentation is and what it's not, we wanted to distinguish that this isn't about tools or techniques. And it's not about mindset to practice or change your mind or practice mantras. It's not a belief system, and it's not a quick fix. What we'll be talking about, what this really is understanding how experience works, noticing any clarity that you might have as you kind of listen to what thought is and how it works, and apply it to yourself. Like, notice your own thinking, not for other people. Nurses are really good at saying it for other people. Notice it for yourself. And it really is a conversation. We really just want it to be something where we can interact and see what we can see through this. And we will be talking about it more as a description, not a prescription, but a description of how thought works, but listen beyond the words about it, like what it actually means to you in your life if you hear something new about how thought works. So there's
This is the most shocking thing right here, what Teresa's about to say. So
go ahead, Lynn.
actually, if you were taking notes, this would be the one to write down.
Right. There's nothing to fix inside of you. You work perfectly fine all the time, every time. There's nothing to practice. You don't have to practice how to think. You already do it every day. But it is something to notice inside yourself. Because when that's understood, a lot of what you've been feeling heavy or uncertain, when you notice that that's you, that's all you have to do. Just notice that, oh, that's the way I'm seeing the world today, and know that it's going to shift in a few minutes because thought never stays the same.
It's so simple and yet so profound. We can really hardly grasp the magnitude of nothing to fix, because our profession is all about fixing. And so we're really taking a completely different direction with understanding the new way of being as we move forward in our profession.
So does anyone recognize any of these? Feeling exhausted, maybe burned out, not sure what your identity is anymore? And the harder you try, the further away you get from the good feelings of how you want to live and how you want to show up. I think this is the most common things that people are dealing with in nursing today. I think we're looking to the feelings that we're having of the exhaustion and can't get clear and don't feel supported. You know, I didn't know that my thoughts were actually creating those feelings. Because if you're thinking about it, that's what you're going to feel. The big thing that I also didn't understand, that trying harder didn't mean getting anywhere else quicker. It just meant, oh, I get to stay here for a little bit longer. So just kind of take a little thought or a pause about that and see if that's you. See if you can relate to that. And then let's see what we can do about it. So let's start with talking about what there is. Nothing here is personal. So if you hear something personal about you, it's because you thought it. But it is universal. The way that we use thought really is the ability for us to think at all. And this distinction matters because burnout is not our identity. It's a description of an experience. And when this experience isn't understood, it can feel very personal and it feels real. Our thoughts are real because that's how we experience life. So no judgments. If you're feeling stressed or burned out or any of the words that we use to describe our feelings, um, just know that it's real and we can feel it and there's nothing wrong with it. But we all look for a way to get out of it. At least I do. It's like, what do I do to stop this? What do I do? And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. Lynn?
I love the way that Teresa has found all these light bulbs that go throughout our presentation today. It just really speaks to the insight that we're talking about. So not only can we have an insight, but at the same time, we feel it. So these are the words: understanding the power of thought can change how experience feels. We feel what we understand, and we don't have to understand it intellectually. It's a very subtle feeling that we know, and we've always known, but now we can speak it because we have a different terminology and a different foundation that we share with everyone in the world, regardless of their background, economic status, political inclinations, religious affiliations. None of that matters. What we understand now is universal.
Yeah. Most approaches to burnout, they're built with good intentions. They don't just always account for the experience, how it actually works, but we've been looking at it backwards. We've been looking at it from the wrong direction. And when we start taking the inside look of us creating that feeling or that thought, we now can do something about it. And I think that's the beauty of understanding how a system actually works versus how we think it works. So understanding thought actually comes before the relief is felt. When we understand thought, have you ever had that feeling like when something became clear, you're like, oh, that's how it works? You know, One little cute one I did when I was a kid, we were driving in the car and my dad said, oh, the lights are blinding me. Do you know how many years I went without looking at headlights? Till I was 14. And I had to drive at night, not supposed to. And I realized, oh, I'm not going to go blind. I just can't see very well. Well, that changed the whole thing about being afraid of looking at headlights. But how many headlights are we looking into right now and saying, oh, that's the reason, and not really recognizing maybe I was wrong. maybe there's something more to see here. But as soon as the understanding happened, I felt the whole relief in my body. Some people feel it as a release of their shoulders. I feel it as a tingling through my body that goes, oh, because it's kind of exciting to see something that you didn't see before. You know, it's that time when something makes sense after you have that feeling, you feel completely different. It's like a freedom that you didn't have before. Anybody relate to that? Can you think of something in your own life where you had that realization and you went, oh, that's how it works, and you never questioned it anymore? That's the beauty of understanding how thought works. Because when it's understood, we don't personalize it anymore. We just live from it. And then I'm sure there will be many others. It's just a very human thing to do. Um, as soon as we learn something, we automatically shift into the next version of ourselves.
Wow, this is such a beautiful, beautiful, relaxed photograph. Um, she actually is raising her arm there. It's a little outside of the frame, but nothing needs to be fixed. We started out there. Nothing needs to be fixed. Nothing needs to be fixed for understanding to appear. It comes in its own time. It's just up to us to notice it. But the beautiful expression on the face of the model in the picture really relates to the ecstasy that we feel when we actually see something for the first time, or finally the pieces of the puzzle start to make sense. Is such a joyous feeling. And yet underneath it all, we have to know that everything fits. All of the pieces of the puzzle do come into place, even when we can't see it.
This is usually where people start trying to figure it out. They're like, okay, let me see if I can do this. Let go of that thought and just be here and see what you can see. There's nothing to figure out here. It's really recognizing that you're actually the person experiencing your thinking. And in reality, that's all we've ever been doing. We make up meaning about everything. And so for today, and for, in my view, the rest of my life, this is the foundation that everything else rests on. Because if we don't have thought, which is what we call a principle in our coursework, there's actually three words that we use that create a foundation: mind, thought, and consciousness. We're talking about thought today, but we really have to have all three to have an experience at all. So, just for terms that we can use to talk about today, mind is all knowledge, the intelligence of the universe. Consciousness is the fact that we can even be aware of our thinking at all. And thought is the medium that we use, not personal thought, but the power of thought to live our lives with. It's an actual power that we have that creates the content for ourselves based on the way we think about life. So I just told you not to think about it, but let that land, that this is truly what the paradigm shift is about what Florence Nightingale was talking about. People actually understanding that there's something more to us than just what we see. There's our spiritual nature, there's our thinking, and then there's the version of us that interacts with this world. And nothing is disconnected. Everything is connected, which is why I think the human connection is such a beautiful thing. Lynn?
Well, here we are
Yeah.
at the healing shift pillar number 2. And we've already talked about insight, but there really is nothing more important for us to talk about than that word insight. There have been beautiful articles written for nursing. One in particular was called The Ways of Knowing. And it talks about this. It talks about the knowledge that comes to us, which is not, which appears to be less tangible. And we used to have a terminology that we called nursing intuition. And now what we really see is that intuition is actually insight. And the holistic nurses call it informed knowing. So even though it seems to come to us from out of the blue, there is very definitely a foundation, a source that all insight comes from. And many of us call it source, the source of all things, the universal source. That's my favorite way of describing it.
So most of you will recognize this. This isn't something new. It's been here since the beginning of time. But I think we're at a stage in history where we're beginning to um, look inward again, look in a new direction. And a lot of times, we've had to come through history with new things and new ideas and new ways of being. But this is the oldest one that ever was. This is how we've got here in the first place. So how does insight, how does that change us? Every single time you have an insight about how you work psychologically, spiritually, it changes you automatically. Our brains are literally wired to do that. When you find out something happens that's true, we just automatically change because we are truly truth meters. We want to know what's true and what's not true. It helps us navigate life better. And that's what helps our minds quiet, is when we actually know something is true. So we're gonna talk a little bit more about thought in this section to help us to maybe bring it home a little bit, maybe check in with you and see if this is resonating or if you have questions. Sometimes it brings up little things like, it can't all be thought. It just cannot all be thought. That's because the world around us looks real. But without thought, we wouldn't have the experience in the first place. Experience cannot show up without our thought included in the experience or the feeling of it. So every feeling that you've ever had came the same way, whether it was stress, calm, confidence, doubt, different experiences that you've had in your life. It came through the same system 100% of the time. Your personal thought created a feeling that you then felt and looked at as real. And you hear it in our terminology, especially in holistic nursing. Um, you know, if the patient feels it, it's real for them. We're not trying to change their mind or change the way they're showing up. We get to meet them right where they are. Just like we want people to meet us right where we are. Because that's where I am. I can't move somewhere else if I'm in a certain place. If I'm really stuck on where my life is or where my thinking is, or I'm solving my problem, I'm not going to go somewhere else willingly until I have a reason to, or something else comes and takes my attention. It's that idea that you can't hold two thoughts at the same time. You can't You can't feel love and think hate. You can't think hate and feel love. They are always congruent. That's the way we are. So when we meet people right where they are, including ourselves, we actually have a board that we can jump off of and go, oh, what if I tried that on? What if I tried this on? What would that look like? And we do it and we call it a decision. We make a decision about what we want to do with our life, and then we go in that direction. But we never know what the next step will be till we get there.
Wow, when the experience feels personal, it helps to see where it's coming from. It's like feeling the clouds all over, hanging down real heavily up on us. If we're taking things personally, we're thinking about ourselves and not thinking about the larger picture, how we're all connected with every other human being, with our environment. But it's just something that all of us are familiar with. And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. But it does help it to notice the feeling. And if when it feels personal, it feels heavy. Even then, there's nothing wrong. It's just something for us to notice, something for us to appreciate, because that's part of our human expression. There always, for everyone, will be times when we're feeling, taking things personally and feeling heavy. It's actually a clue that we can notice to begin to lighten up. There's nothing wrong, and yet it's not a place where we would like to always stay. It's kind of cute. One of our teachers refers to this as a cork, like we're underwater. Just imagine a cork underwater. Well, that cork is not going to stay underwater very long. It's naturally going to rise, absolutely naturally going to rise. So that will be our our um, our steady state, our natural way of being. And yet, there's nothing wrong when we're taking things personally. That's part of the human experience, also. It's just good to know where it's coming from. Um, which is thought. We made it up. We decided to take it personally.
It's funny, taking things personally, I didn't really know I was doing that. And it showed up one day when I was at work, I was on call, I was tired, I didn't want to be there. And I got called in early, which, if anybody's been on call for days and days, you know what that means. Because now you're on call, you come in early and then you're staying till tomorrow, right? And I could tell it had been a rough day in the PACU. And one of the nurses was not having a good day herself. And in the PACU, we would take turns with patients. So whoever was up next, it just kept us to know who was going to do that. And so it was her turn. And so I answered the phone, and it turned into this, I can't even describe it. It was like all of a sudden she was very upset that it was her patient, and I had got there late, and I'd only had one patient and she had two patients. And why didn't I take the patient? I was like, I'm taking my other patient out right now, you know? And I took that personally, like, what is the problem here? Well, in hindsight, after I reacted without thinking, of course, I was like, what's wrong with her? this is something that, you know, I don't understand what the problem is. This is how we always do it. I did it without thought. I didn't look at like, oh, I needed to catch up. Do you see how personal I was taking this? Like, is this about me? Like, I'm just doing the right thing, right? And she's not playing fair. She's not playing the same game that I'm playing. And I thought, oh no, we're not playing this here, not today. And I took it very personal. And I texted my boss and I said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. All of those things that rise up in us that want to prove ourselves right. Well, I didn't know that that was actually hurting me. I didn't take a moment to actually realize what else is going on here. I could see the behavior, I could see what it meant to me. But when we're in our self righteousness, it was one of those places where it didn't look to be a problem to me. It just seemed to be causing a lot of conflict in the room. So that was my sad story. She did take the patient, even though I said, I'll take the patient. Of course, then we had to play that. But it became my sad story for a few days because I was like, what did I do wrong? Why is this so hard? What's the problem here? And so I told my sad story to one of our friends, and she goes, but, can't you get over that? We need to keep nurses nursing. And I was like, well, that's true. She was having a bad day. Obviously, now I've had a bad day. Let's just kind of let it go. Another nurse friend told me, she goes, well, that was her being the way she was showing up. You have nothing to do with that. It's like water off a duck's back. And I went, well, that's true. But I was still suffering on the inside because I don't really like that kind of conflict. So I needed to solve the problem. And so then we were being mentored by Dr. Blevins at the time. And so I had to tell him my sad story. And he said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, I can tell by the way you're telling the story that you have too much skin in the game. And I went, excuse me? He said, whether it was your gall or your righteous indignation, that was a you problem, not a her problem. And I heard that at a very deep level, and I went, oh, he's right. That was the problem, is I was being righteous about it, and it didn't look like that to me until that moment. And all of that extra thinking, because when I realized that it was me, number one, the first thing I did was forgive myself, like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. The second thing I did was apologize to her on Monday. And when I went to tell her about it, she started crying and hugging me. She said, Teresa, I was just having a really bad day. That was a huge lesson for me in the way you show up matters. The way that you treat others in your thinking matters. And that changed my life because I can see where that attitude that I had truly had affected me in a lot of places in my life that didn't look like thought. It didn't look like to be a problem to me. It looked like a them problem. And I can tell you that was probably 8 years ago, maybe longer. And it changed the way I showed up at work. Because when I walked in the door, especially right after that realization, I looked at people different. I saw them differently. I even asked myself what kind of day they're having if they were acting out of character. That's the power of thought. It didn't change my mind. It was something that I recognized within myself that went, oh. And it was a really good experience in the realm of coaching because when you're coaching people and you see your own stuff coming up based on the conversations that you have in a coaching conversation, you get to heal at the same time that the client does. And maybe even more so because you get to understand this system that we're using to live our life with that most people have never even heard of. And that's the beauty of the foundation that we're creating in our coursework and in the conversations that we have. let's have a conversation about what's going on inside of us because experience does feel personal. It was personal. The other thing Dr. Blevins told me, which was really funny, he said, there was once this woman named Ophelia, and on her gravestone it said, "Here lies Ophelia. She was never offended because she never took offense." So when I hear myself sometimes, I'm like, am I taking offense? Because as soon as you take offense, you actually put up a roadblock for people. It's an invisible roadblock. It's not because you're not there, it's because you checked out of the conversation because you were offended. And so then you make up a story about that. And seeing yourself play that game is really quite incredible. So I would challenge you, if you're feeling offended, to take a pause and see what's there for you. Not to judge it, but just to see.
Wow. I mean, the way Teresa put this together, such a beautiful, exquisitely simple, and yet this is just the whole thing right here. Thought does not need to change for experience to look different.
Yeah.
We have the opportunity now to see for ourselves through just checking in where the truth lies. And just like she spoke a minute ago about not taking things personally, not being offended, just notice because we don't do the changing. We don't have the power really to change our thoughts. Our thoughts are going to change. It's like a box of Kleenexes. You pull one out and another one pops up, another one pops up, another one pops up. We don't know what the next Kleenex is going to look like. All of a sudden, there's a blue one, and we know, uh-oh, we're just about out of Kleenexes now. But those thoughts just keep coming, coming, coming. If we don't like the thought we're in at this moment in time, we'll just wait for the next one. We don't have to hang on to a thought, and we don't physically have to do anything. It will be like a cloud in the sky. We never think about anchoring a cloud in the sky. We know that that's going to pass, just like the weather. It changes constantly, and our thoughts do as well. We're going to experience life differently, moment to moment to moment. I know one of our colleagues was talking about her daughter, and she said, "Oh, Maddie just gets so bored and she doesn't know what to do next, and she just complains." Well, I tell her to just come sit right here by me and just see, just wait and see what thought comes next, what idea happens next. Boredom is not something to be escaped from. Boredom is actually an opportunity to have a new thought. And that thought comes on its own. It will change our experience in the moment.
It's funny, that I think about so many things that I used to think were true and real and found out that I was making it all up. and and miraculously enough, my whole experience of life did change. Our ability to see ourselves for who and what we are is really a gift that we get to live in and be in and stop judging ourselves from. And I don't think there's any other freedom I've ever experienced as to realize the power that we have within us to do anything we want. The only person that limits us is us. And it's kind of like I have a little thing of Play-Doh here. Have you ever seen the Play-Doh experiment? Where if you take the Play-Doh and you try to take it and play with it in the bottle, what can you make? What can you actually make out of that? That's the box we put ourselves in when we're trying to figure out our problems without looking anywhere else. We just keep recycling our own thinking over and over and over. And the biggest thing we can do, as far as I can tell, is make a big hole. And then I jump in it. And then I can stay there for as long as I want. And sometimes I stayed in there for a real long time. But if I actually take it out and play with it and look at it and maybe make snowmen out of it, I can do anything I want with it. This is the power that you have to create from nothing. This represents nothing. But when you get to play with it and decide what you want to do, you can actually make little tiny decisions. You can make great big decisions. The tiny decision for me is, what am I going to eat for breakfast? The great big decision was, oh, I'm getting married. Let's move across the country with 2 children in a month. I did that 30 years ago. And I thought, what were you thinking? And yet without that decision, I wouldn't be here today doing the work that we're doing and the things that we're doing. Does anybody relate to that? You caught yourself inside a little container, going over and over and over, trying to decide what to do with your life or with yourself or in this conversation with our career? Drop yes in the chat if that's you. I want to see how many of you had that feeling before. I cannot be the only one. It's just an amazing thing to hear yourself go, oh, me too. Me too. I got ahead of myself. So the power of thought creates experience. And again, it's a neutral power, so it doesn't care what it thinks. And that's a very big thing. That's a writer downer. Thought doesn't care what it thinks. You get to decide. Because when you realize that it's you, you can actually have insights into what you're naturally aware of. Like, oh, have you ever met another person that had a thought just like you? Exactly the same way. And you thought that, oh, they think just like me, therefore we are alike. But that's not true either, because you have all of the different ways that you can look at meaning for yourself. And it's a beautiful thing to recognize it, because it suddenly becomes something that you can look at and realize and know, you know what, if I just change my mind, I can have a completely different reality right now. So it's not about adding more thinking to your mind. It's about recognizing that you're it at all. I go through little periods of time, and I'm sure you do too, where you just keep having a repetitive thought, like you don't know what to do, don't know what to do. Let me just keep thinking harder about it. Let me just, if I think harder, maybe it'll change. I can tell you that it doesn't, because you just keep reinventing those little pathways in your brain that says, oh, this is what we like to think. Let's connect harder and harder and harder. But if you decide, like, let's see what else is here, that physical connection in your brain actually lets go. That's our physiology at work with our thinking. I never thought about it like that until I started looking into the work that we're doing. We call it the 3 principles, and that's how interconnected we are. This is an all one paradigm. We haven't used that word yet, but it is a paradigm shift. And a paradigm is how something works in the world that works the same way every time. And if society believes that things work in a certain way, then it works in a certain way. To change paradigms, we have to have insight into that. And this work is actually changing that because these principles don't change. We just get to use them. And that gives us a foundation that we can actually use to help ourselves move forward.
Clarity tends to quiet effort. You know, as human beings, we often find ourselves efforting. Um, there are so many words that we use to describe that efforting: seeking, trying. Um, there are just so many words to describe that useless form of human activity, which at this moment we'll describe as efforting. I just am really struck by the simplicity here. And I mean, just the last two words, they're a complete opposite. Quiet is not effort. Effort is not quiet. We function best when our minds are quiet, when we have the opportunity to allow new insights to come into our mind rather than trying to create them from the outside. I know one of my friends is she it's so funny to me. She says, I love to go to the cardiologist. And I said, you do? What's up with that? And she said, well, because it's all about the heart. And she said, but sometimes I do have to tell the doctor to turn off your transmitter and turn on your receiver.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the word clarity. What does the word clarity mean to you? Drop it in the chat. What does the word clarity mean? Clear.
Is that as in clear as mud?
Maybe. Makes sense. Clear. Transparency. Ooh, nice. Able to connect with increased accuracy, to understand things for what they are, not what you think they should be. Ooh, that's a good one. Able to connect with increased accuracy. I just read that one. It's true. And sometimes clarity means understanding something beyond the words, like that informed knowing that we talk about in holistic nursing. It's like, oh, that's why we do what we do. And I think clarity, one of the feelings of clarity for me is a lot less thinking on my mind. Like suddenly I don't have to manage all of the extra thinking to find my answer to whatever I want. So you're right. It's the ability to connect and to know. It also taps into your wisdom. When you have less on your mind, you actually get to listen to wisdom that gives you direction that wasn't your own personal thought. It's the same thing that happens to us when we are at work and we think, I need to go down and check on the patient at the end of the hall. And we just know that we need to. And we just go. And we're there at the exact right time. It's the tapping into something beyond ourselves, our personal thought, to give us the direction that maybe we didn't know we needed to take. or to ask the question that occurred to you in a moment of clarity, like, hold on, what else is happening with my patient? And you ask that question that unlocks everything else of what's going on with your patient. So much easier. Clarity also shows up. I had a patient one time that came out of the OR, and the second she woke up, she couldn't breathe, couldn't breathe, couldn't breathe. We're putting her on BiPAP. I'm like, what's going on here? This is not the typical wake up from this particular surgery. And I found myself dropping into a space of listening and listening to wisdom and doing. And I had her for 6 hours, and I just kept doing the next thing and doing the next thing and doing the next thing, calling the doctors, calling the consults, calling the X-ray, call everybody. And I looked back after 6 hours. I took her to the ICU, and don't you know, she got up out of the bed and walked to the bathroom. And I went, okay. I went home, and of course, as you always do, you reflect on what the day was like. And I realized it was the easiest thing I'd ever done. I didn't question it. I just did it. And there was not one decision that I regretted. Have you ever felt that before? Have you ever been in that space where you just did it? We always have access to that, always. But we forget a lot. And I think it's good for us to know how the system works, because it allows us to settle ourselves more often. I'm not going to say all the time, because I just don't think I can't do it. It's not something I do. It's something I recognize or notice.
Well, and it's so subtle. That word efforting, I was trying to remember. Well, there's a group of students that call it striving. I strive to do this. I strive to do that. It's our common language, and yet it's so not where the truth lies. Striving and efforting is not where truth lies.
I think for me, that feeling is more like tension or stress when I'm in that space. Like I don't feel like I know I'm being guided, but it doesn't feel easy. And I think the older I get, I'm looking for the ease that I know is there, that I've experienced before. And I really think that that's this whole conversation. I know we're talking a lot about thought, but it really does apply directly to nursing. It applies to the nurse coaching conversation or the container, because it's in that space of understanding how this system works, and our need and desire for human connection. We don't live in a bubble. Most of us think we do, but we don't. We live in a world where we enjoy interacting with people. Um, we enjoy nature, we enjoy food, all of the things that the world has to offer. And when we get out of our head, I can enjoy it a lot more. You know, I've gone to many dinners where I had a lot on my mind, and I was like, I just want to go home. But if I allow myself to enjoy the people in the conversation, I find myself in a space of complete relaxation and enjoyment. Now, I understand that not everyone is a social butterfly, but I enjoy that. I like being in the company of people, and just communing, being part of something bigger than myself is a nice space for me. How about you? Are you a group person or an individual person? Do you, I enjoy my quiet, don't get me wrong, but do you enjoy being around people? Like, you crave that kind of um, connection? I think those of us in nursing kind of do. Some people will say no, but I think for the most part, yeah, Jan says group, Shannon group. Who here's the lone person? Who likes just being by themselves? My husband says I never met a stranger. That is true. Funny thing. We used to go to the grocery store, and my husband would tell me before we walked in the door, he goes, don't talk to everybody. I was like, if you notice, they talk to me. And he's like, it's true. How do they find you? And I said, I think I have a nurse written on my head. Rosemary says she likes both, but people really energize me. I agree with you, Rosemary. That's kind of me. I do actually enjoy being alone in my quiet time. That also energizes me, but once that cup is full, I'm ready to go play. And for me, play is being around people and doing things. My mother-in-law is like, you just love it, don't you? And I was like, yeah, I do. And I find it funny because she says she's a loner, but since her little dog died 2 or 3 weeks ago, she goes, I'm so lonely. And I was like, oh, so you do need connection. And so she's been spending a lot more time at my house. And I was like, oh, so you think you don't want to be around people, and yet here you are. I think it's a human need that a lot of people think they don't need anymore, but I tend to disagree because the minute that we get afraid or lonely or want something different, we seek out human connection because nothing else satisfies like that. So, seeing how experience works, it often changes what's felt, but it does it on its own. It does it by itself as your attention goes to the next thought. Does that make sense? Did you catch it? The next thought actually gives you your next experience every time, all the time. So, really, you don't have to add anything new to your thinking, and nothing needs to be removed. It's truly the insight or the noticing of how this system works that gives you the freedom. One of my words was freedom. When I was in a retreat one time, and they say, well, what's your word? What's the one word that you resonate with? And I said, freedom. Have you ever had to pick one word? If you had to pick one word today, what word would you like to bring to your life? If you feel like it, drop it in the chat. It could be any word. Freedom, connection, love. But a word that means something to you that maybe you would like to bring with you to the new year. Clarity is a good word. Because the words that we choose, actually subconsciously, when we choose that word, it becomes a part of us. And it will actually help direct you for what you want to do next. So for 2 years in a row, I did a little reflection of, choosing a word to lean into for the next year. The first year I picked quantum leaps and massive action and quantum leaps. I don't know why I picked it. I just liked it. I liked the way it sounded. I liked the way it felt. And by picking those words, put me on a trajectory of something I would have never expected. Now notice this is something you can use in coaching. Like, what are you leaning into? What are you putting your attention on? Well, massive action and quantum leaps really meant for me getting out of my own way so I could take the steps that I knew we needed to take to bring nurse coaching a little further down the line, knowing that it's not up to me to do that. It's up to the people who decide to take a next step in their life of bringing something to life in their own world that they want to do. And turns out you find a lot more people like you when you put those words out into the universe. And the word for last year was strategy, because of course I thought I needed to have strategy because we're trying to figure out, what this nurse coaching is going to look like. You all are pioneers just by being here in this conversation. And I learned that it's not just strategy, it's actually people. It's actually loving on people who want to do something bigger than themselves in the world, and we're finding each other. That's a strategy. bringing people along with you and creating space to help us learn and grow and do something that has never been done isn't strategy. It's just a way of showing up. It's a way of being. And I don't know why I went down that rabbit trail, but I just want you to know, like, this isn't something that just happened today. This is something that we're all creating as we move through this life with a desire to make the world a better place. And I think nurses have the best chance of doing that because of who we are. We're Most of us are just afraid. I'm going to read something to you that I actually just wrote this morning, because one of the ways to help people is to see why you're doing what you're doing. And I wrote, we help nurses stop being afraid to be themselves and start sharing their knowledge, gifts, and talents with people who are ready to heal and live a life they love. And I thought, me too. I want that too. And so if that resonated with you, drop yes in the chat. If that's you, if you want to do something like that, because I think fear is the one thing that does hold us back a lot.
Well, and these words remind me so much of Dr. Pettit's words: never broken, nothing lacking. We as human beings have perceived ourselves as being broken, especially people in our profession. But nothing is broken, and we are never lacking. That's why nothing new can be added, and nothing needs to be taken away, because we are already a whole thing, complete, and gosh, I want to say new. How does that fit in here? Um, Complete and whole, never broken, and nothing lacking.
They asked me to drop that in the chat, so I'm doing that now. And you can turn that around and use it for yourself. If that's something that resonates with you, anything I teach, use it in your own practice. I don't own it. It just comes through me, comes through you. And I think whatever we can do to help each other is perfectly fine.
Wow, that's so beautiful, Teresa.
Yeah. I don't own the principles. I'm just trying to do the best I can to describe what they are. But, everything about it is in the understanding for yourself, or another word is the insight that you have for yourself about your own life and what you're here to do. And I really believe that coaching is that container for us to help people see themselves, maybe even for the first time. So understanding doesn't move you forward. It just reveals who you really are already. It's already here. We wouldn't be in this conversation if it wasn't. And it's just a beautiful thing that people even care enough to want to, right? And that's a wonderful place to be, I think. So experience is always being created right here, right now, in this present moment. This is life unfolding at the speed of life. One of our friends wrote a book, Slowing Down to the Speed of Life. And I heard, oh, stop to smell the roses. Like literally, stop what you're doing, stop striving and efforting, and get present to your life. What also came on the heels of understanding this was, what are we not taking care of in our life as we're striving and efforting with a busy mind? Sitting on the couch wondering what to do, what to do, what to do. We're on the couch, we're with our family, but we're not present. to our life. We're literally in our head with wishful thinking, asking for clarity over and over and over, when we would be better served if we went out for a picnic or a walk with our family. Because when we do that, we actually make room for the answers to come. That was a writer downer. If you're on the couch wondering what to do, go for a walk. Get out of your head, because that's where the answers come. They don't come from the effort. It's also the reason why, as soon as you have the insight or the epiphany, like, oh, that's the answer to my problem, you've suddenly changed. Like, you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to do anything. You just decide to go because you know, oh, well, why was that so hard? Or why was that invisible? Because you can't hold two thoughts at the same time. That's why you'll hear people talking about, well, I finally got the answer when I was in the shower. Does your mind quiet in the shower where you can go, oh, that's the answer I was looking for. That's not your thought. That's wisdom coming through. Going for a drive. Have you ever been driving and you're deep in thought and you don't know how you got there? That's a busy mind. You're not paying attention to what you're doing. But your
Wow.
brain kept you safe to get you to your destination, right? Who's done that? How many of you have done that? Raise your hand. Yeah.
And that makes me think about Velda Monroe Levin's experience. She was driving to Seattle one day, and it was about a 2 hour trip. And all of a sudden, she just felt like there was something wrong. And she looked in the rearview mirror, there was nothing there. Looked straight ahead, nothing there. Um, it's a long drive, couple hours. And she checked all the gauges on the dash, all fine, not a problem anywhere. And she just had a horrible feeling of something wrong. And then she realized that she was thinking that something was wrong. Nothing was wrong. And she just relaxed and she laughed at herself because she knew she made it up. She had no idea what her thoughts were. No way to track it. Couldn't go back. But it was amazing to her that all of this terror and foreboding that she felt, she knew it had just come from a thought that she had. There was nothing wrong. Teresa, you've got your hand raised.
Well, I have a lot to say, apparently. I don't know how to put my hand down. We'll just wait for it to go away. So I think, that feeling of sudden change isn't sudden change. It's just a realization or an insight or noticing. And it's an amazing feeling. But Lynn and I did a nurse hack for health years ago. And we had a young lady that just wanted to be a part of a group and had this bright idea to create an app. And she was listening to our presentation and she came back the next day and she said, when you were talking, she said, I realized that this problem at work that I was holding on really tight about a friend of hers at work. And I was walking with my husband in the park and she goes, all of a sudden, she goes, why am I carrying this problem? It's not even mine. And she said it came with a sudden feeling of relaxation. She goes, I never noticed that before. She goes, it's happened a lot of times, but I actually saw it happen. And I just thought it was so cute because she was so excited about actually seeing that happen for herself. And I thought, wow, just even in a small conversation, it matters what we see. So we don't actually create insight. We don't go looking for it. we notice it. Like when there's less on your mind, it just occurs to you. And in the work that we're doing, a lot of people, there's a lot of people who are bringing what we call the three principles, this understanding. We just happen to be doing it for nursing, but it's actually in 63 countries. There's a lot of people who have realized something about how thought works that really matters to their practice, to their life. A lot of therapists made this the connection that, all we have to do is point. We're not trying to change people's mind. We're not trying to convince them that this is happening for them. We're opening the space for them to see it for themselves. And I think Helen Erickson, we were on a call with her and Mickey one day.
Dr. Helen Erickson, the nurse theorist, is the
Milton,
mother of Margaret Erickson, the director of American Holistic Nurses Credentialing Center.
and Milton Erickson was her grandfather, her mother's father-in-law. So that's the chain that they went to. But anyway, it was so fun because she was talking about modeling and role modeling, and she's worked on that theory for many, many years. And she said something that, and I never forgot it. She said, when you're in a conversation with someone, even if you know the answer, which is really only your answer, what's the fun in telling them? Let them find it on their own because it will mean so much more to them. There's no fun in giving the answer. And I think that's a really good thing to remember. We do it with kids when we're trying to teach them a new skill. Um, we want them to find it on their own. And we want to find it on our own as well. Like your insight might work for you, but it's not mine. But as soon as you notice your own, the whole world changes. And so just know that that's a thing. What's the fun in telling people the answers? Let them find it. It doesn't mean you don't point the way. It doesn't mean you don't have a conversation, but just know that when you're having that conversation, you're waiting for the lights to go on for someone else. And especially in coaching. And I always hope and pray that someone will hold that space for me so I can see my own blind spots. Because
Mm.
we call them a blind spot because we can't see it. We're real good at seeing other people's blind spots. We are not good at seeing our own. And it can almost become part of the joy and if you want to call it a game, the game of life, of helping people to understand you are the thinker and this matters to you. And as we learn and grow together, we can help each other along the way. And if we have a common language with a little bit of structure around that, because language is what we have, we can actually help each other be better people all around in our personal life and our professional life and the one inside of ourselves where actually this is the only place you live.
Well, and I love those words, Teresa. It's actually seeing thought. Insight
Mm.
is actually seeing thought. I just saw that just now in those words, and wow, when we can see thought, we really have the opportunity to recognize the power that we have when we see thought.
Well, that's that. Has anybody ever heard observing the observer? Has anybody ever heard of that? Yeah. Do you ever use that for yourself? Have you ever, do you? I see Jan. Jan's really good at this work. You don't know Jan, you need to get to know her. She's amazing. Um, but it's observing the observer. You can actually, sometimes I just take myself mentally and go, what are you really doing? And seeing yourself as you are, and then envisioning what you envision of yourself, because it for me it helps kind of take me out of my like the thought loops of like, what do you think you're doing? What if you do that and you fail? What if somebody doesn't like that or doesn't like you or all of the things that come up, right? Or I know what I need to do, but I'm afraid to do it. Those are all things that I just think they're human. You know, there's a place within us that knows no matter what we want to do, we could just do it if we would get out of our own way. And nothing is really wrong with that, but it can keep you stuck for a very long time. And the beauty of having these kinds of conversations, I think we can get unstuck a lot quicker than if we didn't. And so holding this space and being here with you today is, you know, an attempt at that conversation to help us become our best selves and to do the work that we came here to do.
I
But
do
it,
have a friend who observes when she thinks about observing the observer, being the observer, she puts her hand up behind her head, like, okay, I'm watching, I'm being the observer. And she just has a visual that goes
that's
along with
funny.
that so beautifully.
I like that. I'm going to try that next time. Okay. Oh, there you are. That reminds me of one of my clients. He's so funny. And we'll call him John. And he says, Miss Teresa, I get what you're saying, but sometimes, I have the devil and the angel on my shoulders here. One's name's John and one's John John. And John speaks louder than John. And John is himself. But it's all that negative self-talk. And so finally I said, well, tell John to be quiet. And so he was at work one day and he did. And he goes, I was just having this whirlwind of thought. And I said, John, just go away. And you know what? He did. And I thought, that's hilarious. I said, well, if it works for you, do it. But be aware of the voice you're listening to. Um, Personal thinking doesn't always tell you the truth. That's a writer downer. Personal thinking doesn't always tell you the truth. It does look real to us though, because that is how the system works. But just know that that's something that can happen. So is anybody feeling any little shifts inside themselves? Maybe something you hadn't considered before. A little insight or a little, you don't even have to explain it. Sometimes it's just something you know. But just having the conversation can sometimes shift how we're thinking. Curiosity about each other.
Mm. Oh,
And that's a
that's
coaching
so
skill,
true.
becoming
Mhm.
curious. One of my students called me from the bathroom at work and she's crying. She goes, Teresa, I have an alcoholic in DTs and I can't stand him.
Mm.
And I was like, in my middle of my little brain, I was like, oh, what do I say? What do I say? What do I say? And it occurred to me, have you asked him how he got there? She goes, what? I've never asked him that, or anybody for that matter. And said, your job right now, this minute, is to go talk to him. And I want you to ask him what his story is. The next day she called me. She goes, Teresa, I love that man. She goes, I can see why he's where he's at. And all I want to do is be a good nurse for him. That was very different from crying in the bathroom to loving the person is a very huge shift. But she had never considered asking him about his story. Now, granted, most of us don't have time at work to do that, but I think there's always time in our assessment to ask people some kinds of questions that help us take better care of people. But, this is one of the reasons what you're just talking about, Brenda, is why this conversation needs to be in every nursing program. Because if people knew that this is how life works, we would be having completely different conversations with each other. And not because we taught them our way of thinking, but because we gave them the power to think how they think and to notice what they're actually creating for their own life. And that's a place where everybody's very interested in their own life. I don't know anybody who's not. So I mean, this is a deeper conversation than today, but thank you for bringing that up and, helping us to kind of notice what you were just talking about is not very different than the story I told you about me in the post anesthesia recovery, where the other nurse was having a bad day and it looked like it made my day a very bad day until I realized what I was really doing with my personal thinking. And then the healing and the good feeling came back. But we have to be open and aware to it.
Thank you very much for saying that because I had to let it go because
Mm.
it was eating me
Yeah.
and making me feel uncomfortable. It was making me feel like I didn't want to teach, but I love to teach. And it was driving me for a number of years because it
Mm.
seemed like the harder I tried, the more comments they made. If I changed it and they didn't like that new change, then they criticized the new change, and and I've been teaching it for 11 years, so it
Wow.
was a work
Wow.
in progress.
It will
It's
be.
an ongoing,
It will
yes,
be.
it's
You,
ongoing.
you will love this conversation the longer you stay in it. You will see things that you have never seen before about how life works and about the work that you're doing. Because when you
Mhm.
stop judging yourself and criticizing yourself, you drop all of that extra thinking and you just become present to your work, doing the best you know how. And you can't be in someone else's head, but they can feel the difference in you. That matters, and it matters a lot.
Wow.
It's,
Yeah, they're gonna feel the difference in you. My goodness. That
yeah,
you when you're so solid in your own being and you know that you're never broken and there's nothing lacking, they will feel that. And it'll be a sense of security for them.
yeah. Carla, I see your hand up.
Yeah. Teaching, Connie Barker and I teach the three principles and coaching for the family nurse practitioners and the doctor of nursing practice students at Texas Wesleyan. And looking at them at the beginning of the semester when it starts, you're getting all this judgmental, trying to, yeah, judgy persona like you're experiencing, Brenda. Then, as they go through the course, through their insight journals that they do, and through just the interaction in class, you can see a shift about halfway through that they are realizing that they can't have other people's thoughts, that they're a lot more tolerant, they're a lot more empathetic in the patients that they're working with and their coworkers too. So this knowledge that we're getting does have a huge shift in everything we do, even teaching nursing students. So I think it will be great, Brenda. If uh, the more you know, the more that you can convey this to them.
These are undergraduates. And
Uh
I
huh.
can almost relate to being a student who returned to obtain my master's and my PhD. The master level, it was, I felt like how can I say it, that I had lost the ability and the skills to even learn. So once I overcame that, that was great. But when I went into the PhD program, I felt like at the end of the first semester, like a fraud. They were saying words so, long that I was, you know, I couldn't even pronounce them. So and so it's like I'm a fraud, and what am I doing in here? And they're gonna kick me out, and
Be able to change that. But I
Uh-huh.
can tell you, when you show people how they work psychologically, which is the conversation that we're having, and you can weave this into your teaching. Um, you might think you know all the answers, but you will never know someone else's answers.
Oh, well said, Teresa.
And so that's
Wow.
it really. So I had this conversation, not this particular conversation, and she's not a nursing student, but she is only 23 years old. And she's struggling at work and she's going to school. And she just had that same conversation with me about not feeling like she was smart enough. She wanted to go into aerospace engineering, but she settled for accounting. And she said, I'm just not smart enough for aerospace engineering. And I said, who told you you weren't smart enough? She goes, well, nobody. I said, well, you're believing a thought that's not real. And she goes, oh, that's true. Because she does have that interest. But I gave her a very simple analogy, and this actually came to me March 1st last year. And it's an equation that helps me ground myself when I sort of get off track. And it's big M equals little m times little c to infinity squared. And I should have put that on a slide, I suppose, but you can write it down on your paper. Big M equals small m, small c with the infinity sign squared. And what it means is there's only one mind with all knowledge of the universal intelligence, period. That's what this life is about. But it equals little m, which is your personal thinking. So put a little tick out that says personal thinking. Using the power, not personal thought, but the power of thought, which is infinity squared, times consciousness, which brings all of it to life. So big mind, universal intelligence equals personal thought that you are aware of with infinite amount of possibilities, and it's all yours. You get to use that system to live life with and guide you. Does anybody still feel confused about that? I didn't plan on saying that today. But
Can resonate with it.
yeah,
Um,
it's a way of just kind of in my view, my personal use of settling myself down, like realizing, oh, I'm always attached to source. I can always count on it to be there all the time, whether I'm aware of it or not. I always know that I will have thinking or thoughts. One person calls it, I have thinking and I have thoughts. Thinking thoughts can be very busy, but the power of thought is not. But I can have any experience I want based on whatever I put my attention on. And that's all me. I get to do that. No one can do that for me.
There's a request for you to repeat the equation, Teresa.
Oh, okay. Big M. I don't know if Tia can copy and paste it into the chat or not. Big M equals small m, small c to infinity squared. It's a metaphorical equation. It's not a real equation.
I'm just reminded one of our students was actually teaching undergraduates, and at their school, just as in all schools of nursing, there's a preferred way to talk about psychology. And they had that up on the chalkboard. And she drew a line down the middle and she said, okay, this is the way that we've been told to teach. And this is the way that it really works. And not a single one of her students picked up their cell phone the entire semester. They were so fascinated by hearing about the way it really works. She was teaching the principles, drawing a line down the middle of the way that psychology currently is being taught. And on the other side, putting the three principles the way that it really works. The students couldn't get enough. They had to hear every word.
Oh, I love this conversation. Thank you for bringing that up, Miss Brenda. Um, we're going to go to a little bio break here, but I put this here just as a reminder of whatever we focus our attention on is what we get in our life. And we get to decide what that means for ourselves. And I hope that through this little section, we maybe opened up a little bit of our aperture to see something a little new about ourselves, maybe, or maybe life. Just yeah, nothing to think about.
We'll plan to be back at the top of the hour, so we can have 15 minutes to refresh ourselves and just take a moment to absorb some of what's been shared.
Yeah.
So
Please,
we'll see you back at the top of the hour then.
all right.
Thanks so much for being here with us.
Thanks for so much for sharing.
Yeah, wonderful. Bring to life the ones you only bring to life, the ones you put your attention on. So it's a noticing that it's you, the thinker. Does that make any sense?
Yes,
Okay.
but still, I
I
think
don't
what
want you to
helped
intellectualize it. The second you put your intellect on it, you sort of lose that slippery slope of understanding.
well, in that slipperiness is the fact the next thought will come in
Right.
that would change everything. And then everything looks different because that slippery slope is almost a blessing because then
Yep.
this next thought slips in. Okay, beautiful. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. And again, we're using language because that's what we have, and we're using our intellect to listen and understand. But what we're pointing to doesn't really have words. It has more of a feeling. And a lot of people in the spiritual world and even in the scientific world are talking about it like the heart connection, because it takes us out of our thinking and puts us into our heart, which they know has as many more nerves than the brain, right? But that's why we feel our thinking. They're not separate. They are one thing. And it's where intuition lives, and it's where, for religious people, the peace that surpasses all understanding, that's where it lives. Rumi has a poem: in the world of rightness and wrongness, there is a field. I'll meet you there.
Where there is no right and no wrong.
Yeah.
It's an open field.
Yeah.
We're not really the thinker. We are the thinker, but thought moves through us. We don't really control our thoughts. Thoughts
It's interesting
move.
that we started right here,
Yeah.
which I think is an appropriate place to be. But there was Sydney Banks is the one who actually called it mind, thought, and consciousness. And he went to a prison, a women's prison. And he wrote a book called The Missing Link. And the missing link is that we don't understand how thought works. Is what he's pointing to. But he said it's not in the words. He gave that book to all of the inmates, and then he came and visited, and a few of the ladies stood up, and one of the ladies said, I never knew that it was my thoughts making me do the bad things that I did. I thought I had to react to my thoughts to make them go away. And that was a very common theme among the inmates. And when I saw that story, it struck me like, wow. I mean, a lot of us, many of us have self-control, right? Of not doing things with the thoughts that we have, because they might not turn out very well for us. But some people don't know that. And now that they do, I bet their life is completely different, even if they have to stay there. Because now they know how it works and they can let some of the things go that don't serve them well. We all have that opportunity.
I remember one of the incarcerated people said, the refrigerator told me to do it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Any other questions that somebody's having a little thought about that they'd like to ask or clear up before we move to the next?
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you for clearing up. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, Rosemary. Rosie.
Yeah.
Thanks
I
for the
like that.
comments.
Yes, thank you so much.
And thanks to Tia for putting the M equals MC squared into infinity squared in the chat.
Oh, what happened to my thing? It's not doing its thing.
It's taken on a life of its own.
I guess it did. I'm going to have to stop share because it won't let me
move.
It wouldn't let me move the slide.
Rosie's hiding behind Mona Lisa there.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm hugging her. Can you see?
That's so cute.
That is cute. That's fun. Okay, bio break is over. Did everybody get something to drink and use the restroom and all the fun stuff? So
Yes.
this afternoon, we're going to talk pillar 3 and 4. Pillar 3 is presence and pillar 4 is sustainability. So we'll spend quite a bit of time on presence because that is one of the coaching skills. One of the core competencies of coaching is what is presence. So a lot of us know what that is already, but I think it bears talking about a little bit more. I loved this picture and I picked it because sometimes, Brenda, I can imagine your students going like this and only listening to themselves, right? But what they can really do when they start listening to themselves, they can drop into the presence that's within them if they know to look. Because most people think they have to be on or out here, not realizing that the presence of a nurse is a very quiet space. And you bring it with you when you walk in the room. It's part of that healing that nurses bring. And we always, if you've ever been in the hospital as a patient, or probably even if you were just the nurse himself, you can tell when you walk in the room and you're present, or you walk in the room and you're very busy minded. You might not even see the patient, but if you walk in with the presence, you see the patient first. And I think that's one of the gifts that nursing brings for us. And truthfully, presence is a skill, but it's not a technique. You can't make it a technique. You can only talk about it in a way that makes sense for you as you bring that into your practice. Lynn, go ahead.
Well, it's interesting. I'm just reflecting on some comments that Dr. Darlene Hess made. Darlene wrote the very first art and science of nurse coaching, and as nursing, it's based on the nursing process. But she says that coaching is a very, very highly honed skill that we use to listen to the client at the same time that we're listening to ourselves. Because we hold the power in the conversation. Without the nurse, there's no therapeutic conversation. I'm going to say that again because one way that I express it really runs counter to the way that we think about our relationship with our patients. The question that I came up with is, who's the most important person in the coaching conversation? And as nurses, we always think, well, it would be the patient. But the way that I saw it in this instance was that it's the nurse. Because without the nurse's experience, background, and skills, there would be no therapeutic conversation. So presence is not a technique. It's something that you are. And when you are present, listening emerges naturally, both listening to yourself and to the client at the same time. When you drop your thinking and go deeply into presence, you're completely interested and curious about the other person, but you're also noticing yourself, and your attention naturally opens. How would you say it, Teresa?
Well, I think it's just extremely fortunate that we just bring it with us wherever we go. You know, that takes a lot of busyness off our mind because, you know, nurses are busy people. You know, there was a study that was done that says a nurse does 663 tasks in a 12-hour shift. That doesn't leave a lot of room for a lot of other things. So knowing that it's built in, but people can notice when you're not present. You know, if you're too busy or you don't take the time to do that little momentary connection. We all know the people who make us feel like we're the only one in the whole hospital. You know, like, I know you're busy, but you took the time to be present with someone. And that actually does more for a human being than all the tasks you can perform for them. And I think it's something to notice. And I think as nurses, we know what that feels like, and we know when we're not doing it. I mean, I know I just don't have time for this right now. Or you have the person that's called you in the room for the 20th time. I actually did figure out how to make that work. When you go in and you be present at the beginning of the shift and let them know that you'll be checking on them every hour, and that if you do need them, put on the call light. But if you're just checking to see if I'm still here, please don't do that. And they're like, I would never. And I had a patient who tested me. I left the room, and 5 minutes later, she put on the call light, and I said, did we not just have this conversation? She goes, oh, we did, but I was just making sure. And do you know that I did not hear from her the whole shift? And she had been the one that was on the call light every 5 minutes for like 2 days. And and it was hilarious to me that just that one 5-minute conversation, being completely present and understanding that she was afraid of what was happening with her, and to put her mind at ease changed the whole dynamics of the whole unit. And the second time I did that, I did some travel work at the VA in Idaho. And if you ever met a military woman in the hospital, she is a different kind of lady. And she was adamant that we were going to stay in her room the whole time.
Oh, wow.
Because she was that afraid. Don't leave me, don't leave me, don't leave me. And so I spent the first 30 minutes in the room and letting her know that we were absolutely going to be here with her. I gave her my phone number on the mobile phone so that she could call me directly if she needed something. So I was talking with her in the other room while I was taking care of someone else, and it worked out great. And she was like, I appreciate you taking that time with me. It took me a lot of years to figure out how to navigate that. And I think that was what worked for me. But I've taught it to a few of my other nurses that I preceptored, and it seems to work for them too.
Well, and Teresa, tell about the gentleman that said, you nurses don't know this.
One of our friends, I was on a call, and he had just gotten out of the hospital, and he said, there's one thing you nurses don't know is that every time you walk in the room, we fall in love with you a little bit more because we've never felt so cared for in our lives. And when he said that, he was just being completely 100% honest as a 70-something-year-old man dealing with life. And I was like, I'm so glad the nurses that walked in your room made you feel that way. But it warmed my heart too, because I know that we have every intention of doing that for our patients. And we want people to do that for us when we're in a vulnerable position. Because, I think we all know that every one of us has the potential to be a patient. And we would like the same grace that we give our patients. And I think one of the things about presence is we feel like it's something that we do, but it's really something that we are. And listening doesn't actually require effort if you're actually curious about what they have to say.
Okay.
And we get into that space because when we're present, we have room to hear it. When we go in with a busy mind, it's a lot harder to hear. And there's no judgment, because there have been many times where we are very busy and we don't have the quote time in that moment. But I used to set the tone in my unit. I was one nurse, an LVN, and a CNA taking care of 10 or 12 patients. And we would set the tone for the day by just going in the room and letting people know what the routine was. Because we knew what it was, but they didn't. And letting them know that, we wanted to meet their needs. And I can tell you that was the best unit I ever worked on, because we all did the same thing as far as meeting the needs of people. But you have to be open to that connection and that feeling. It really is more of a feeling. And it really happens when we're not trying to fix everything or we're planning, but we can create that space for ourselves just by noticing how we are showing up for our patients, and actually truly for ourselves and each other. I think I like this slide because when I wrote it, I was like, we often talk about being present and doing it and creating the space, but it's more than that. It's showing up with as little on your mind as possible, even for a few seconds. Just take a breath before you walk in the room, or take a breath before you enter a conversation. I have to do it a lot with my husband. Like, I have to stop and just actually listen to what he's saying. Because for a little while there, he was like, you never listen to me. And I thought, I'm a coach. I listen very well. Well, guess what? I did not. And after about the third time that he said that, I thought, all right, that's a clue. And I started listening before I responded. And he stopped saying that. Now, nothing changed. I didn't go in there, I'm going to listen now. I just changed the way I looked at it and created that space for it to move into our conversation. And it was really quite wonderful, because when I had less on my mind, I actually had a lot more fun talking with him too. So there's a side benefit to becoming present to the conversation. But as nurses, I think we get really used to teaching and informing and trying to impart as much knowledge as we can, as quickly as we can, but people can't really hear it very well. Not when they're in their own thinking, probably about what's going on with them, or, trying to get ready, or, they've already, especially like at discharge, when we're flooding people with information about what to do before you go home, or what to be aware of, and we hand them the pieces of paper and rush them out the door. We don't really absorb information like that very well. So slowing down for even even internally slowing down, not time-wise. It doesn't take any more time to get present and speak with someone with connection as it does to impart all the information and then roll them out the door. But the connection and the benefits to the other person are vastly different.
I remember one of our students wanted to create a position for herself in her hospital as a discharge nurse using her coaching skills because she knew that clients would be able to listen as she opened space for that.
Yeah. And I think that Brenda, I think that's a very big nursing skill that maybe our younger nurses don't really know yet. You know, if you haven't had to do it, it's kind of like if you've never had an experience with it, how would you know? And creating those opportunities, I think is very important. I noticed that when I was precepting a lot of nurses that came through the PACU, they would think that they knew how to recover someone, but they'd never worked with anesthesia before. Well, anesthesia is a whole different thing. You know, there's stages of waking up and knowing when to do things based on that is a little bit different skill. And I think our younger people just haven't had that experience yet. But it's also why conversations are so important. This particular conversation about presence is something you bring with you. It's something you notice. How many of you do public speaking? Anybody? I mean, teachers, everybody.
Yes.
Brenda, yeah. Oh, she's raising her hand that she does. Yes, as a teacher, you definitely would. But do you know that feeling when you're speaking with everyone and there's like a warmth and a feeling in the room? The connection piece. And then you know the second that the attention is gone, there's like a coldness in the room. Have you ever experienced that? That's one of the ways you can gauge presence is the warmth in the room that you're speaking to, or the ability to sense that people are interested or connected to what you're speaking about.
You
And
know,
I
Teresa, this is really a good point. We had a student the other day that we were speaking with, and she was saying that she had done a lot of work professionally and was accustomed to presenting at nursing conferences and such. But when she went to run for political office and was speaking to the public, she had to learn a new way of communicating. But what I'm realizing is that sense of the room, that feeling of being heard doesn't change. But she's clearly abandoning her professional air of, well, shall we call it superiority, um, being the knowledgeable one in the room when she talks to the public because they will each have their own opinion about her. But that conversation, the depth of the conversation, the feeling of the conversation remains. And that's what we need to focus on. As nurses find their voices and are able to be heard in the boardroom, in the conversations with the press and with the public, that conversation, that warmth of conversation, that feeling of warmth has to be continued. And nurses know it so well.
Brenda, your hand's up. Did you want to say something?
I totally concur with everything Lynn was saying when I was running for public office. I'm sorry, I turned my video off because I
Mhm.
move around and I think I might be annoying people. Um, but uh, Well, let me just finish my thought. With Lynn, I totally, um, I totally experienced that when I was running. And finding your voice, that was the most important thing for me to find because I found that when I was in the public speaking in the community, feedback was, well, you're too technical. Don't be so technical. And then, lo and behold, um, I had a conference or what do you call it? Speaking in public, and someone started talking about the Institute of Medicine and the to Air's Human Report. Well, that's right up my alley. I teach that in my leadership class. I start off my class talking about the report and why the report was uh, submitted, um, to the point where today we still live by that report. And so I kind of have that moment of feeling, having this mixed feeling. Well, just when I treat the audience like they are all knowing, they tell me I'm talking above their knowledge base. And then when I treat them as if community and I don't want to get ahead of them and kind of stay at their same level, then they come back with, all knowing. And so it's so baffling, but uh, it was, it was a work in progress, constantly of finding, and that was the bottom line, finding my voice, um,
Mm.
and we've been able to speak comfortably, which it wasn't easy, but it over time became more comfortable.
Oh,
You know what I
that's beautiful.
noticed in what you were saying is that's that internal dialogue that we have, right? Like trying to meet everyone else's needs. Like okay, they want me to do it this way, and oh, they want me to do it that way. And then what you just said is you ended up just speaking your own truth. That's when you got present to you because no one else can be you. They have their own choice to think whatever they want. But you can see how we are in society. We think everyone should think like us. Every audience member wants that people to think like them because that's what's real to them. And that's what makes this conversation so powerful is if we all know we each have a completely separate reality, that even when people are standing there looking at us and nodding and agreeing with us, they are not having the same experience as us.
Mm.
And
That's so
that,
true. That is
yeah,
so true.
yeah,
And that happens many times when the students will sit there and nod, and then someone will come up. I was using the word grassroot. They were nodding their head, and something
Oh,
said to me, "Do you know what it means?" And it's like, no, 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 no. And I had that moment of, well, how long have you guys been nodding your head and having me continue my conversation, thinking that I was connecting?
yep. And now you know why this is the most important conversation in the room. When you know for a fact that no one will ever have the same thought as you, the same experience as you, but if we can impart the knowledge that that's what's actually happening, everyone in the room will go, oh, no one else thinks like me. All right, no problem. It's okay to not think alike. It in a sense it levels the playing ground because now we're not trying to convince people to think like us. We already know they don't. And we're all trying to find our own way in the world. And it settles our thinking down to become present to our life. Oh, if no one thinks like me, that gives me room, number one, to be myself beyond my thoughts, like, sense of purpose, sense of just being a human being, of enjoying our lives and not trying to meet everyone else's expectations because you never will.
this is the most exciting part of the conversation for
Mhm.
me when I think about nursing, because this will be the end of bullying.
Yeah.
No need to try to convince somebody else, just knowing that we don't think the same.
I actually like that. That's probably my favorite thing that we talk about is separate realities because it shows up in so many ways. You know, when we show up to a conversation with thinking that I'm going to change the world or I'm going to change everyone's mind and they're going to think like me and the whole world will be great, it doesn't take but about a split second to realize that's not going to happen, right? But it can in my world. My world can be the world that I choose, and I can love you in no matter what opinion you have. And then when we come together, you know, a lot of people are like, we need to change the way things are happening in the world. I don't think that's actually true. I used to think, I want to change the world. I want it to be a better place. And I could see how to do that. Well, guess what? People don't really want that. They want their own personal world to change. If they're not enjoying the life they have right now, then they're looking for their own health, their own satisfaction, their own way of being. And when we point people to how their thought actually works, and they actually begin to become a participant in their life, not just in their head. I've had many adventures in my mind sitting on my couch. Did not help me have the smell of what France smells like. It didn't help me go to the ocean and feel the power of the water. You have to
Hmm.
get up and be part of your life, and you have to show up present to do it.
Hmm.
And that's when the world changes. One of our coaches said recently, well, we have this vision to make the world a better place and do all these things. And he goes, is it really your responsibility? Is it your responsibility to change the world? No. It's my responsibility to show up as the best self that I can for the people that are here, to have these conversations that we each go out and maybe make a little bit of a difference in the world that we live in. But if there's enough of us doing that, we do change the world, but only because each individual sees something new for themselves. And that's why nurse coaching is so powerful. We'll all who choose to engage in a coaching conversation, especially from this perspective of using what we call the three principles, a metaphor for human understanding. Um, we have something that can help people in real time, in real life. Any thoughts about what we just talked about? Anybody?
I have a thought. Since we all have our separate realities and this the three principles, how it's increasing or changing our thinking process. There's an old expression which we've all dealt with. I'm sure I'm not the only one. Oh, I'm so glad we're on the same page. That expression, and I'm wondering, since the truth is we all have separate realities and we don't all think alike, but somehow there's this synergistic resemblance. Maybe that's what we're sensing when we say we're on the same page. Any thoughts?
That's a really cool way to think about that. I think we've used that term a lot, right? Being on the same page, moving in the same direction, especially as culture change. Um, when you try to introduce new ideas into the workplace or even into your family, um, I'm not sure we're ever on the same page. we use that to help maybe point to, well, let's all move in this direction. And then we call it buy-in, right? But if everyone would buy into this idea, then we could move the needle forward. Don't we hear that in leadership quite a lot? And the problem with buy-in, everybody's buying into something different, you know. And so I think that's where this conversation is really important, understanding separate realities and saying, hey, you know, there is a, I'm going to call it better, but maybe it's just different for some people, way of showing up and living where we actually understand human nature and mankind. And I just don't know anybody who doesn't want to live a better life. Like, what about that? Are we creating a false culture, or are we actually meeting people where they are, including the people who work there? And we have different conversations where we have the understanding of how thought works. Now, that does not say that people don't do bad things and there's consequences, because there is. It doesn't say, oh, if I know this, I can just do whatever I want. That's not true. We have laws, and we have, you know, societal norms and all of that. But personal responsibility is a big thing. And so I don't really know the answer to that, Rosemary, because I think it does matter how the person shows up and how they're using their power of thought to be in the conversation.
You know, I am thinking about our legal system right now. And the way that we're structured is the English system. But it's good to know that there's a completely different system of law, which is practiced in France and in Louisiana. And it's completely different because on the English system, everything is based on previous legal challenges, one after another, building up like bricks. But in France, in the French system, each individual case is completely considered on its own, and all of the aspects of that individual case. So, not that one system is right and that another system is wrong, but just beneficial for us to know that there are different systems. There is no absolute, even in law.
Interesting, isn't it? Interesting conversation when we think about it from that point of view. You know, these are the conversations, you know, as Lynn and I have been working on the nurse coaching for 10 years now. You know, it's only been around, what, 13 years? I
Right.
think it's only been a thing for 13 years, which sounds like a long time, but isn't in the big scheme of things. And I think what's happening now is nurses are going, oh, this is actually something that helps us show, I'm going to call it the world, what nurses can do, and what the value that we're bringing to the conversation of health and human well-being. You know, the reason we got into nursing, most of us, you know, I hear some people get in just for the money, but I don't think you can not be touched by the human condition, no matter what brought you to nursing. And realizing that we are all part of the health and wellness systems that we have, because it's a human need. We all want health and we all want well-being. We all want a good life. I don't know anybody who says that, yes, more suffering for me, please. I just don't think that exists.
And no nurse ever went to work to do a bad job.
Oh, I used to say that all the time. I was like, I'd go to work and people, you know, somebody would say something and it would just be, you know, oh, you did this and oh, you did that. And The next thing I know, somebody's in the bathroom crying, and I'm like, they didn't come to work today to do a bad job. I know they didn't. But whatever circumstances that we've created as a culture, it happens a lot more than it should. Brenda.
I just wanted to share, it was astonishing. I used to have the students do an assignment on a historical nurse outside of Florence Nightingale.
Mm.
And I gave them, generally had 10 groups. And so I would assign them, and they all were females. Well, a male nurse, and of course, we're getting more male nurses. He commented, "Well, how come you don't, have a male listed, one or two?" I said, "Well, a good point. Women came up. Well, I worked with a librarian, and she sent me a list of male nurses. At least 15 of them had went to prison because they went to work to administer medication into an IV. I read one particular nurse history. He was injecting, I don't know, it might have been digitoxin, I think it was, into IV bags before they were, at this point, they're very protected and you really can't access them. But he was injecting. And so they found the pattern where patients were dying, dying, dying. And then he left, the dying stopped, and then the hospital pondered and said, well, let's see where he went. And then sure enough, deaths started happening at the hospital he attended. But I had a challenge finding the only man that I found that I could share with the students. Now, mind you, there's probably Z more, but in this particular point in time, was the gentleman who was a part of discovering DRGs.
Oh, wow.
And I was blown away at the list that there were about 20. And the list that she gave me, maybe 15 out of, I stopped looking because when I
Wow.
found the one, I was happy.
Right.
So some people, one, come in this business for the wrong reason, and two, just have to say there are some that want to do harm. Don't know why.
That's interesting. Our friend Dr. Bill Pettit, he's a psychiatrist. He's been using this work in his practice for 40 years. And he by no way condones anyone's bad behavior. But he said, imagine the state of mind a person has to be in to do the things that they do. Like, what kind of state of mind was he in that he did what he did? Um, and I think this work can really help us to maybe be a little more noticing of state of mind of, the people around us and the things that are happening in the world. And we never know what one word we can say to someone that can completely change their life. I think for whatever reason, unmet needs or people get a very strange idea in their mind and they think that's the right way to do. That's what this work is pointing to, the fact that whatever that person is focusing on becomes their life. And it does have implications for the people around them, such as whatever this person did. Um, I don't think we could ever prevent all of that, but we can certainly maybe intervene sooner if we knew what to look for.
But
Well,
Teresa, that was the challenge that I was having when I was reading one after another after another. I couldn't put my mind where their minds were.
You can't.
Could not understand why you would hurt somebody, intentionally hurt someone
Mhm.
and
mhm.
lose your life, your freedom.
I
And
know.
that's why once I found that one gentleman that wrote the DRGs, it was like, I'm done. I don't want, well, I've got one. That's it.
I got one. That's what I need. That's what,
I can't stand to keep reading these minds I don't understand.
no. And I don't think anyone who wants to have a good life lives from that side of life, but we have to acknowledge that it exists. And,
Well,
that's the other thing about thought. It doesn't care what it thinks. Like, oh,
I'm reminded of Dr. Blevins' wife, Valda Monroe. The first time that she met Sydney Banks, she wanted to sit in the back row, but there were only two seats up in the front row. So Keith pulled her up to the front, and she sat there and listened. And as he was speaking, some thoughts went through her mind, and she would say, "Well, that's true, and that's true, and that's true." And she remembered, even as a child, she always was looking for something to be true. And as they were driving back, it was a long drive back home again, she started thinking about an incident that she had experienced in her life when someone had done some damage to her. And she realized that she was thinking about that incident in a slightly different way. And once they were back home again and back to their routine, there was a word that kept popping up as she was just going through her day. And that word was compassion. And she thought, well, now that's odd. Here, I went to hear this man speak, and now all week long I'm hearing this word compassion. Where is this coming from? And she said to herself, oh, I was thinking about that incident where I was hurt, and I realized I was seeing something different. It didn't feel the same. And she said, I know now that that person made a mistake, and I feel compassion for him. She said, I've made a mistake. It's human. We all err. I have compassion for myself. So with that compassion, that sense of compassion, she was able to see the incident in a completely new light. Yes, he hurt her, but it wasn't, she realized that when she could hold that entire incident as human error, and that she could have compassion for him making an error, because she had at one time made an error, who knows when or what. But the humanness connected them, and she could have compassion even for someone who had hurt her directly. And I remember one of the chapter leaders of our nursing association lives in Las Vegas, and she was injured in the incident where a gentleman climbed up to the top of the hotel and fired into a large audience of people and injured 60 people. Well, she was one of those people. And when she heard Dr. Pettit speak, she immediately wanted to get in touch with him to let him know that she was fine, because he had said essentially the same thing that Valda Blevins had felt in regard to the incident when she was injured. And the feeling of compassion for the person who is in error, who's making life difficult for other people, is a lesson that we all have to learn if we're going to survive and thrive in our culture today. And not that there was they never have been able to find any rational reason, of course, because it's crazy, but they never have found any reason why that man did what he did. And yet we can have compassion for him, knowing that that was a terrible, terrible situation that he was in, for any of that to make any kind of sense, and understand that he was really tormented and in a very, very bad place, even to consider the possibility, much less to carry it out.
And I think it serves well to say that we don't condone it. You know, when things like this happen in our world, we don't condone it. But I think there's for me in that conversation was I can have compassion, but I don't have to like them. You know, I don't have to go there with them. And we all know that the only place that we really experience a good life is on the positive side of life. Knowing that all things are available here in this world for us to have to deal with or experience. But Brenda, you're right. I think it's I'm glad you found one. And hopefully in the future we'll have many other, because I do know many male nurses who are doing wonderful things in the world. And I guess we need to elevate that part of our profession a little bit more so they're seen. We need role models for the men in our profession as well.
Well, going to Sigma Theta Tau biennial, I certainly met a number of wonderful male nurses.
Right.
And so that's why I made the point that at that point in time,
Yeah,
what was given to us. And so hopefully the reverse is happening.
wonderful. I'm glad. You know, it's interesting that it took you having to look for that to notice the gap that needed to be filled, right? And look what you did with it. That's thought too. So good for you. You'll go down in the history books for knowing, hey, guess what? We noticed there was a problem here and we actually did something about it.
You're an inspiration, Brenda.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Very, very good. I just want to take a little breath, a little pause here, and just kind of let what we've been talking about settle. And maybe just kind of sit up a little higher in your chair, move around just a little bit. Kind of let that part of the conversation just kind of just be there without anything on your mind about it. And just know that even after this conversation, I think many things will bubble up or percolate, that you'll see something a little bit different. And take 3 big deep breaths.
Well, and I'm reminded that in our profession, many times a nurse will be called on to care for the perpetrator and the victim at the same time. It's part of our work. It's what we do.
So we're going to shift gears into sustainability. Like what does this conversation have to do with moving forward? Why we think that this conversation around nurse coaching and using the 3 principles as our foundation of this coaching makes nursing and life sustainable, and how it can help us bring into practice the visibility of nurses too. Because there was a study done, Lynn, maybe it's 12 years ago now. We've been saying it for a while, but they went on a mission. American Nurses Association went on a mission to make nurses more visible. And after 10 years, they did a pulse check and found out we were less visible now than we've ever been. And I was like, excuse me? How is that possible? But I think, it's just modern times, the change in the landscape, the technology, just different ways. But I also think, I remember when I got out of nursing school, I still did community service. I still went into the community and taught classes to people. when I was doing the cardiopulmonary rehab, there was about 5 ladies, and they're like, "We want you to come to our TOPS." Does anybody remember TOPS? Take off pounds sensibly. Was that a thing anywhere you guys were?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. So I used to teach that class once a month for about a year in the community. And it was great fun because we got to be there as a group, and I'd bring a little topic, and we just had a great time. But the people in the community just loved it. And I thought, I think in a strange way, we're moving back into nurses coming out and sharing their knowledge with people, maybe in small groups or even formal groups. So the sustainability is, some nurses want to stay in nursing but do it differently. The mass exodus of nurses in the last 3 to 5 years is stunning. 37% of nurses have left. That's crazy. Some just left the bedside, others left the profession altogether. And, I think that's one of the things that we cannot ignore, the fact that that's happening in our profession. And I think conversations like this is what helps people, especially nurses, feel supported and willing and wanting to do more in our careers, and truthfully share our knowledge of what we know. Especially, I'm going to call us wisdom workers, nurses who have been around for a while, have a wisdom that the new nurses don't have. And without the wisdom workers in the system, we're losing that knowledge very quickly. And so another way for us to still be part of the conversation is to bring it through the nurse coaching, because nurse coaching is a sustainable way to continue the skills and conversations of what make nursing such a special profession in the first place. But we also know that the way it's being done now is not sustainable, as evidenced by people actually leaving the profession.
Well, I'm just remembering, Teresa, there was a young man at the Hack for Health that created a new way of using a light that was on the forehead, basically, of the nurse, so it didn't disturb the clients, the patients, or other staff at the hospital. And I don't, we could look back and find out who that was, whether he's even continuing his career in nursing
No, he didn't. He sold it and he went off and did other things.
Right. But there's somebody who was using his innovation in a very creative way to benefit the profession.
Yeah. I had a conversation yesterday, and I don't know if she's here. She might be. Like, she still wants to do nursing. Joyce, are you here? I can't remember. I know you were planning on it.
Yes.
Good. So I had the most lovely conversation with Joyce yesterday, that she's 85 and wants to still work because that's who she is. And I was like, wow. And imagine the wisdom that she has to share with the new group of people that she'll be at. And I thought, well, there you go. Nursing is not the issue. What the profession is not the issue. It's just how it's being lived out in a system that doesn't understand us. Well, it doesn't understand us because we never open our mouth to tell them. And if we don't do that, or at least show people what it is that we do know, it will be a lost art. And I don't want it to be a lost art. I want us to embrace the fact that nursing is its own profession. It has its own body of knowledge. I can't remember the lady who actually came up with nursing diagnosis. Again, she was a nurse who saw a gap of how to impart knowledge into a system and make it a curriculum for nurses to learn how to do nursing. Unbelievable that she created the very first nursing program like in the early 1900s. And we're still using it today because it's a body of knowledge. And it's a body of work that makes a difference in a human being's life. And I think this conversation in particular about learning a skill beyond just the technical skills, it's a communication skill. It's a life skill to understand that we are so much more than, the things that we do to or for a patient. It's the connection that we have. It's why Florence Nightingale was so leading edge when she took them out of the buildings and put them out in the sunshine and air and cleaned up the environment. She put them into a state of health so that the body could do its thing and heal, because that's what we are designed to do.
Yeah,
So,
and it was a nurse that figured out that the kids who were yellow needed to go out into the sun so that they could get the vitamin D, and the babies were healthy after that.
yeah.
I did see that Joyce came off of mute for a minute there.
Oh,
Joyce,
Joyce.
would you like to say a few words?
I was actually just writing some notes when Teresa spoke of our conversation. There's some humor in all this. You graduate as a young nurse with a lot of education, a lot of effort to pass exams, to pass your certification, your degree, whatever it is, and there's a comfort level at a particular size, because you've put effort in and you're all eager to put it to use. Then you nurse for years, like I've done. And I am still, or maybe even more, in the position of recognizing I have learned a lot, but there is still so much more to learn. And a lot of the conversations we've had here today are different than they would have been back in
Right.
1964 when I graduated, because they didn't fit then. That we make statements that everything was in people's heads as if that was a derogatory comment. We know today everything is in our heads. So, as I say, there's a part of it that there's humor in, because we're human beings.
Words of
Brenda's
wisdom.
raised her hand now. Go, Brenda. Thank you,
Thank
Joyce.
you. I like what Joyce said, and I like the fact that she still wants to nurse. That's in my blood. I know nursing. I love nursing, and I can't think of doing anything else. But when you were saying that thought about we learn a lot, I reflect back on these students who are just 2 years in, not even to practice, but 2 years in to becoming from a layperson to a professional, and to be filled with so much. I got so much knowledge on base. I know so much, and how little they do. I want to say there's a lot more out there to learn. And all I can say to them is, uh, this is a profession where it demands lifelong learning.
Yeah, I think that is very key, which is, by the way, one of the things that when you get a board certification in nurse coaching, you're agreeing to lifelong nursing, of continuing to learn, because we know we never come to the end of it. When you were saying that about the students who they have all this knowledge now and they're so full of the knowledge, it was really humorous to me one time. There was a young lady, she was an ADN nurse and she just got her bachelor's degree. She'd been a nurse maybe 2 or 3 years before she got her bachelor's degree. And it was all she could talk about. Well, I have a bachelor's degree now. and the rest of us who'd been nurses like 20 years were like, okay. And it started to humor me just a little bit, because it was so new and so fresh and so exciting for her, that I had to remember that she doesn't know what else she needs to know, but she is going to learn. Just like I did the day that I learned that people can have a massive heart attack with a smile on their face. But the monitor told another story. And when I asked the patient, is your chest hurting? And she goes, oh, girl, it's just, this is like an elephant on my chest. And I went, excuse me? You're talking to me as if nothing is wrong. Talk about an eye-opening experience, my first 6 months in ICU post-graduation. And that made me realize, I think every nurse has a moment where they go, oh, I have so much more to learn. But at the moment that they're working so hard and it's so new, it's like a little kid learning to ride a bicycle, I can ride a bike, look at me, And I think within that, there's a little bit of room for us to hold that excitement for them without judgment of how much more they need to learn, because we already know they're going to. We already know they will. One of my young people that I preceptored early on, she was brand new. She hadn't taken care of any patients particularly yet. And she comes up and she goes, can I tell you something? And I was like, yeah. She goes, I'm afraid to go in the room. I looked at her and I said, are you going to hurt them? She goes, no. I said, they just go in and have a conversation and take their blood pressure. That was it. She had so much fun. But I had to remember, we're all new once. And we all know that they're going to learn things that all of us had to learn at some point. And I think that's what the compassion will do for us when we remember, I was new too.
Mhm.
I'll tell you one little naughty thing that I did. Got this brand new patient into the ICU, had never taken care of a heart attack patient before, and she had to pee. And I said, oh, the bathroom's right over here. Come on over here. And walked her through the bathroom. And all the nurses looked at me. And one of the nurses said, Teresa, don't ever do that again. I was like, okay. I felt about this big, but I never did it again. Right? I don't know. How many of us have done something crazy and
Or ever made a med error.
makes us sustainable is when we know that.
Well,
And
and I have to laugh because I truly believe I wish I could follow up with these students that I've had, 2, 3 years later, and how much what was taught to them resonates with them.
you know what? Now we're back to the presence, right? When you bring that presence to the student in a way that says, I want you to be the most amazing nurse you could ever be in your life, and you will never stop learning about it. Stay curious. And if they hear that in their training, when they think they know everything and then they don't, they're going to stay curious. I have to trust that their wisdom will come through at the exact right time that they need it. And there's plenty of people I've trained, and especially in PACU, where I sit across the room and I go, your patient's not breathing. Yes, they are. Their chest is moving. Your patient is not breathing. Yes, they are. And I walk over and open up their chin and they go, and they look at me with these eyes about this big and they're like, oh, guess what? Understanding happened real quick. And they became very good PACU nurses. But sometimes we need to open the airway so we can all take a breath and go, you know what? For nursing to be sustainable, we have to stop judging each other and criticizing each other. And of course, I am very partial. I think the coaching conversation is the one that will do it, especially from this perspective, because we're now talking about a human being who came here to do whatever it is that they were brought here to do. And we're opening that space for people to thrive, ourselves and our patients. So when we understand how change actually works and how this work feels, the butterfly can become an eagle and become the next generation of people who are taking care of us. This knowledge can help sustain our whole profession, but we have to be open to the conversations. And it's a beautiful place to be. The hope and possibility, there's nothing like it. And here comes Lynn's favorite.
Some nurses find nurse coaching fits here. Yeah. You know, that color pink is love. Every color, every shade of pink, absolutely is love. And here we're talking about coaching. It just has finally arrived. It's been here all along. Nurses have been coaching, but suddenly we see it as something new, something that stands apart, something that can be practiced consciously and adhered to as a science and at the same time as an art. So, the art and science of nurse coaching.
I got a little ahead of myself, but it's okay. You know, and I'd be willing to say that this conversation isn't for everyone, but the ones that it's for will resonate with it. You know, there's some people who really just love the technical side of nursing, and we need them. We need them to be excellent at it. But I still think that everyone who has this knowledge, no matter what skills they're having to do in their job or in their life, it just makes a difference for us. You know, so even though this path isn't for everyone necessarily as a nurse coach, I think we're all on our own path to what we were brought here to do. Some people are thinking that the nurse coaching is taking people away from the bedside or away from nursing. I think it's not doing that at all. If you love working at the bedside, please stay there, but bring this skill with you. Bring the skill of communication and understanding human nature with you because it makes a difference everywhere a nurse is. And, you know, it's just a different way of showing up or a way of being that helps us to really understand nursing on a little bit deeper level, but it also makes nursing visible to the public. If you ask the public, they have no idea what nursing, who a nurse is or what we really do, because it just looks like skills from the outside.
Well, and I think that just the fact that nursing is bundled with the room and board at the hospital, nobody's ever paid a nurse individually, except for someone who's hired a private duty nurse, maybe for a family member at home. But one of the reasons we're invisible, in my sense of things, is nobody's ever paid a nurse directly, and our nursing services are not billed separately as they are with respiratory therapy. Even nurses created play therapy for kids. I mean, we've done so many special things that have now become reimbursable on their own. But we, as the larger profession, the largest in the world, actually, have not been recognized for our skills individually because we've never been seen individually.
I want to have something to show you, okay? 1 second.
Is it a dog?
No. Hey, get ready. You might have to shield your eyes. Just a second. Ta-da! Do you see my sparkles?
Yes. Yes.
So
It's the new you.
it's the new me. So we're going to do a little shift to the invitation that we talked about at the beginning of inviting whoever wants to into the nurse coaching program. And I just wanted to make it a little bit like a party because it is a party. It's a inviting you to my birthday, right? Like join a group of people who really want to make a difference in the world, not just for the patient, but for yourself as well. This next part I'm going to let Lynn go through because she's really good at it. But I just wanted to celebrate a little bit, and it is New Year's. So I'm going to have my party clothes on.
Yay.
Yay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, there definitely is a way to continue exploring with us. And I think I'd like to start just by saying that a lot of people have questions about time and money and family commitments and so forth. So I thought I would just tell a little story about how some of our clients, patients, students have seen their way through some of these things. First of all, I just love it, and maybe she's even here about time. She let us know that if it were more structured and more rigid in the way that it was presented, she would never have time to do it. But because of the fact that it is a continuous enrollment and self-paced, she can fit it into her busy schedule. And man, she has a busy schedule. She teaches, and she also is one of the top people in her national Hispanic nurses organization. So she's a very, very busy person. Another topic that often comes up is the topic of finances. And, this actually happened. I am reminded about it right now. One of my colleagues was concerned about moving forward because she didn't have what she needed financially. And next time I talked to her, her mom had won the state lottery. And I mean, answers come. Answers come. I don't know if they've ever found, did they find the big ball lottery that was last week?
I think
Anyway,
so. I
they
think
did.
somebody did.
Yeah, because 40 people it never turned up. Okay, so then just in regard to family, I just love this. We have one student who was absolutely brought into the program by her spouse. It was her spouse that wanted her to do our program. And of course, we're always happy to have conversations with either the potential student and the family member. But I just remember that so uniquely, that it was the spouse who made the difference there. I think we can go to the next slide. So for me, well, let's go back for just a second. That part about it being a board certification can never be overemphasized. It's just, Margaret Erickson is the director of the American Holistic Nurses Credentialing Corporation. And when she began 13 years ago, she went to the American Nurses Association and said, "Will you certify nurse coaches? There's lots of interest now." And they said, "Oh no, we're not going to do that." So she said, "Well, as the holistic nurses, we are interested and we are going to move forward with that." So that's how it came to pass that there is a national board certification in coaching. It was one person, Margaret Erickson. Now, she did have a committee, and there was a white paper written. And if you type on the search bar, nurse coaching white paper, it'll come up. You'll see the very first original white paper that was written for the nurses who wanted to begin nurse coaching programs and nurse coaching certification. And I remember when Teresa and I made a little video back in 2016, she was talking about how proud she was to have received her certification. So what is actually required? quite simply, 80 hours of continuing education. So we are continuing education providers through the Board of Nursing State of California, recognized by all 50 states. The second requirement is supervised coaching hours. Those coaching hours are included in our program. You will also see a list of nurses who can coach people privately listed on the ahncc.org website. But we incorporate that with our program. Not every program does. And then there's the mentorship and community. We have an ongoing program, which we call our advanced course, our mastermind, and it allows people to stay connected, our students and our graduates, on a once-a-month basis, and assist each other in working through the issues of being a nurse coach or becoming a nurse coach and putting that nurse coaching to work. So we offer that mentorship and community. And then there's support for ongoing, well, what was the last word, Teresa? Understanding, right. We are always bringing in special guest speakers who can assist the students in seeing a broader picture of what we call the principles, understanding the universal principles that we've talked about today.
I'm going to ask, can I move? Because I'm not doing a very good job.
No, you're good.
Okay.
So I love the way that she put this: designed for nurses who want more room to breathe and not a new identity. Well, it can actually be a new identity as a coach. One of the interviews that I was on for a TV interview one time was, how do you feel now that you've become a certified nurse coach? And everybody else was talking about, what they were doing for their patients and for the profession. But what really came home to me at that point in time was that I was honoring myself in recognizing me as a growing professional. So I did have, in a sense, a new identity, but as a continuing nurse, always and forever learning. Next. So our investment for the full program, the full 80-hour program, is $499.7. But we actually are making a special offer to the group of you who are here today, and this goes through the 10th of January. It's a $1,000 gift. This is the end of the old year. It's the beginning of the new. And so through January 10th, your investment is $1,000 off $39.97. And it's the best investment that you can make. If you make a decision between now and the end of the year, yes, it's tomorrow, it can all be considered as a tax deductible business expense if you're opening a business. And even beyond that, Teresa stresses that it's also considered a professional development expense. But whether you're considering doing it for tax purposes or as professional development, that $1,000 off is our gift to you. And we have a one-word code which you can put into the registration. And maybe Tia can pop that one word into the
She did.
chat.
She did.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there are three options here. One of which is yes, the other is no way, and the other is let me think about it. So all of these answers are correct. Yes is correct, no is correct, not yet is correct. just know yourself, know where you are, know to listen to yourself for the answers, and it will be the right answer for you. Teresa?
Clarity does have its own timing. You know, this is an invitation. We really wanted to be able to share a little bit about what we teach in our coursework, and also offer the opportunity to join us as learning about coaching and learning about this way of coaching. It's a very unique way, and no one else is teaching it. And, you know, we also know that life happens. And one of the things that makes nursing very different, as say, if you wanted to be a nurse entrepreneur or bring a new skill, is we have an ethics about us that we have to honor the professional people that we are. And so clarity has its own timing. Making good decisions is really up to us. So if you decide you wanted to become a nurse coach, we would just love the opportunity to speak with you, to explore what it could mean for you and your career, because in the end, you're the one that's responsible for what you bring to your professional career. Again, the program is 80 hours, but you can get board certified after 60. We offer the 80 because we really know that even after the board certification, it really is helpful to have a little more context to what you're doing, because we know it's a new skill and we know it's a new way of showing up as a nurse. So just to reiterate, you get 80 hours of continuing education. We do include the supervised coaching hours, which are a requirement to sit for the board certification. But beyond that, we are really building a community of nurses who are taking new knowledge out into the communities that we work. And community can be in the hospital, it can be in the prisons, it can be anywhere that you would choose to work as a nurse. And support for this ongoing understanding and being in this conversation, there's nothing else like it. It's the most fun place I've ever been in my entire life, to be able to speak with like-minded nurses and go, hey, I'm struggling with this. You know, what's your perspective? Or just literally having someone listen to you and your dreams and your ways of showing up. That in itself is healing. Until you've had a coaching conversation that's just for you, you can't really understand the power of it. But once you understand it, you don't ever want to be anywhere else. So again, today our program is usually for $4,997. Today is $1,000 off. So through through January 10th, the investment is $39.97. So it's truly up to you. We would love for you to schedule a call with us so we can make sure it's the right fit and the right time for you. Because with nursing, it is about the ethics. It is about right timing, and it is about being in the right place at the right time.
Well, and I'd love to say that being early on as a nurse practitioner, I remember the long distance phone calls, paid long distance phone calls that nurse practitioners had to make halfway across the country just to connect with another nurse practitioner. How times have changed with cell phones and with Zoom. It's so much easier now. But not only that, we have an entire association, the American Holistic Nurses, backing us, and the Credentialing Center as well. So the support is definitely there. I happen to be a friend of one of the nurses that started the Nurse Coach Association nationally, Nurse Practitioner Association, and my goodness, 5 nurses in a hotel room that decided they were each going to take a part of this big project to bring it to life. That's already been done. We've already seen through nurse coaching. And you can, as I said, look that white paper, just go nurse coaching white paper on the search bar and it'll come up. That work has already been done. Now we're ready to see the fruit. We're ready to notice what continues. And the foundation has been laid. Now we're ready to stand on the shoulders of the nurses who began nurse coaching.
So this is the end of our presentation. So, as we close, I just want to return where we started, right? Nothing you heard here today was meant to give you something new to do, something new to carry. It was here to hopefully open some doors to maybe some new ways of thinking, new ways of doing. But if anything here feels lighter or clearer for you, and you really want to be part of this conversation, we want to meet with you and get to know you. So
So I
you.
see that Tia has posted in the chat both the contact information for Teresa and myself. But in the meantime, Jan has raised her hand.
Yes.
But she has to come
There
up.
she is.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. For those in the group that are thinking and contemplating this, I took this course years ago with Teresa and with Lynn, and there were many choices that I had to take different coaching programs with different people. I'm not going to go through their names or anything like that. There were many different programs out there, but this program made the most sense to me. I've always been on a spiritual path. And my spiritual path, going into deep meditation work and mantra meditation, I'm one of the first teachers with Deepak Chopra, helped create the whole center. And it was a next step of going in how to go even deeper for spiritual health, because it all starts with your own spiritual well-being. Everything else follows suit. And so going into mind, thought, and consciousness, it made everything so much easier. Even dealing with all of my clients, it made this complete shift because it all starts there. And the way Teresa and Lynn, or Lynn and Teresa, create this program, they're very supportive. They handhold you through the entire thing. They are always available to you. There are a lot of programs out there that you just have to text somebody or email. You can get them on the phone to ask for extra help. The mastermind that they talked about, I've been in it for years with them. It's the first Wednesday of every month. And you get more support there. And Carl is part of this group also. And so it's just where, if you want to get into make sense nursing, this is a path to go. Because it makes it easier to deal with your patients. It makes it just easier if you do develop a private practice, where there's a lot of nursing is going into a private practice. We don't know what's going to happen in our healthcare system. It's also up in the air right now. And so this way you can actually carve out something. If you don't do it now, maybe in the future you want to, but it gives you many more options. So I can't stress enough how important that this course is. And that's why I'm here today, because I'm very supportive. And they didn't ask me to be here. I just went, I'm going to come in and try this. I'm going to be there and support. And I thought maybe someone from the mastermind would be in there. Thanks, Carla. And so and so it's just, and even having been with them for years, you still hear things differently, as I did today. And so it's a continuous growth. We're never finished. So this is a great group to be in. And that's what I just wanted to let you know. And I didn't know if you have a testimonial in here, but here it is.
We're grateful for you to be here.
Know that, this is a good thing. And take them up to, if you're not decided right now, then this is so unlike this. I'm just going to just do it. There you go.
Well, and I'm so grateful just for the language. I was, thinking about all the cultural differences and now, of course, political and social and religious differences. All of this can be circumvented by the language that we use, because it applies to all of us, every human being in the world. And I'm just so grateful to be here now sharing this. And I started my own private practice of nursing in Monterey, California in 1986. And so the dream that I had then is being realized now.
Oh, Lynn, I just realized you're not too late, or you're not too early now. You're right on time. That's a running joke. She's always been 30 years ahead of her time because she saw this a lot. Private practice in 86. I wasn't even thinking about anything back then, but it's here now, and it's our time in history. we're creating history today, right now. And it will be up to us making choices about what goes forward and what doesn't. And so I'm very grateful for you being here and joining this conversation. Tia has dropped a couple of little links in the chat for you all. One is a poem that Lynn read. Some of you may have seen it on an email. Sent it out as a little video of her speaking it. It's beautiful. It felt more like a meditation to me, but a really, really good reminder of who we are and why we're here and what we're looking for. And then I created a little journal, just a little bit about what today was about, and maybe just a little couple of reflection questions to look at, just to kind of remember what we spoke about. And then I just want you to go out and live your life. Let whatever we spoke about today percolate in there, and see what was there today for you that piqued your interest or sparked a curiosity. And truly, truly enjoy the new year. Be with your family. Go on a picnic if you can. At least be in the same room and engaged with each other. There really are no other memories to make. The ones we make with our loved ones are the most important ones. So I just really appreciate everyone being here. We just have a few more minutes left. If anyone wants to make any final thoughts or comments, we would love to hear it. And just can't tell you how grateful I am for you spending 4 whole hours with us today, because I know your time is precious and you could be doing something else, and you chose to be here.
Picking up on all of those after Christmas sales.
Right. And I just want to say also, for the people who would be watching this later, we know you wanted to be with us, so come talk to us. So thank you. Rosemary.
Yes. Oh, thank you to Teresa and Lynn. This was, and all of your ladies' comments. This was so beautiful. Not only was it insightful, educational, inspiring, but it was the perfect segue to leave 2025 and move into 2026. So you picked the perfect day, and I just send you big thank yous to both of you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Rosemary. We appreciate you. Heather's giving us hearts. Thank you, Heather. I appreciate you being here. We talked on email. She's like, how do I register? And I was like, send her the link. And, you know, we just don't know how we touch people's lives. And it's a really important conversation to have. So thank you for being here. We appreciate you being here.
Oh, and Carla's raised her hand.
Yes, Carla.
Just going to reinforce what's already been said. It was a wonderful program. I am also an alumni of Lynn and Teresa's program, and it is one of the best programs I have ever done. I was a nurse coach before I took this program, but this added a spiritual dimension that I didn't get before, that has changed my whole philosophy and my whole approach to patients, because I deal with patients that are on the lower end, and some of them do have a criminal record. And it just that everybody does the best they can with the knowledge that they have at that moment in time and the thinking that they have at that moment in time. And when you feel bad and horrible, you will do anything that it takes to feel better, no matter what it is and whether we understand where they're coming from or not. So this has changed my whole perspective in dealing with patients as a nurse practitioner and on just a conversational level. So excellent program, easy to do. You can do it at your own pace. Some of us takes longer than others, but it is a worthwhile program to invest in. That's it.
Thank you, Carla. I still have my favorite memory of you at our conference at Waco that time? Can I tell the story?
Yeah, go ahead.
So because Carla had graduated a different program first, we did a panel for the nurse coaching piece to kind of shine the light on what we each did. And so she gave hers, and then I gave mine, and somebody else was there. I can't remember who else was there. And after we were speaking, Carla followed me around the entire conference, and she goes, "Now, what do you do? now, what is this?" And she just kept asking questions. And, I was really brand new to the nurse coaching world and to actually what we were doing. And she was like, "I heard something different and I want to know more about it." And then the next thing I know, she was in the program, and it's been great fun ever since. But it was just interesting to me that when you hear something that's true, you want to know more about it. And that's what she did. And she followed her intuition and her wisdom. And she doesn't toot her horn very often, but she works in a little town called Mineral Wells. And that town, because of her leadership, has become a wellness destination for the state of Texas, much like a blue zone. They wanted to do a blue zone, but they didn't because of the cost. But they have been working towards being a wellness destination. And that is what a nurse can do. She spearheaded that. And
it takes a village, and we're not there yet. We have a lot of people who are not healthy. But we're still working toward that goal. And we did get the Texas designation of the wellness capital of Texas. So,
yeah.
But
Did you hear what she just said? We're not there yet, but guess what? Wouldn't even have started without you.
Oh, that's right.
Wouldn't even have started. And one day it will be a wellness destination that everyone knows about. And again, anyone who has dreams and projects, this is the place to come and make them come to life. Anyway, thank you all so much.
Well, I think that we'll just say goodbye and
one more
Year.
hand.
Just
one more hand.
Yeah. Just one more thing that, we've been talking this whole time about how it's going to apply to nursing and your profession and everything else. I can't stress enough that it changes everything in your life. This course, how you interact with yourself, with your family, your friends, it's not just for the nursing, it's for your entire existence of how you see your life, how you create your own reality. And what Carla was saying, it's not a difficult course. And once you're taking it, as easy as today was, is as easy as the course is, because you're just developing your own insights constantly. So it's not all this memorization of stuff that you have to do. So it's not that kind of time consuming, but it does make a shift in your life and with your family and friends and loved ones, just the way you see everything about your life. So it's more than just for this nursing profession. That's all.
Thank you for saying that, because it truly does change your life. And
like with your daughter, Teresa, have you shared anything about your daughter's insights?
No, not.
Want to end with one thing like that? Because
just the power of what insight can do. My daughter, and she's given me permission to share, has diabetes, and she was struggling with her blood sugars. And now she's listened to her mother for 10 years, right? So I like to think that she did. But she was listening with her intellect until one day we were driving in Austin, and she had to get eye injections. And, as anyone would be, was nervous about it. And she sat there and she goes, "I just realized I'm creating my own stress about this." And she goes, "I'm not even that afraid." And she said, "I just let it go." That was the first day that she had a blood sugar under 100. And she was like, "I figured out how I create my own stress. And I didn't know what that felt like." Did you hear that? I didn't know what it felt like. It's in the feeling of understanding that our whole life shifts. And ever since that day, she has completely changed. She stopped judging her every thought. And she still gets worried, so if you want to say, but she's not doing it the same way. Her life, she told me yesterday even, she goes, I'm okay with whatever happens. I just want to live my life.
Wow.
And that was a very, very big deal with us as a family. And what a relief for the mom. Maybe for her, but a relief for the mom's heart, because don't we hurt for our kids when we can't do anything about certain things?
Yeah.
So again, what Jan was just saying, it's not just about for the patients, it's for us too. And when we see it for ourselves, we can't stop sharing it with everybody we meet. Not the details, but just the compassion and the one or two words that you might say to someone that completely changes their life. So I think we should end there and just be so grateful for everyone who came today and the people who will listen to this, and continue working and loving each other, and really being that support group that we all need. We do belong, and we belong everywhere nurses need to be. So thank you so much.
Happy New Year.
Thank
Happy
you.
New Year.
Guys,
Happy New
Happy
Year.
New Year, everybody. Happy New
Happy
Year.
New
Have a good
Year.
new year.
you too. Take care. Look at these beautiful faces. Oh, let me take a picture. Can I take a picture?
Sure.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. Is everybody okay? If you don't want to be on Facebook, don't put your picture on here. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Smile, everybody. Smile.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Enjoy your day. Go play.
Okay. Thanks, Teresa.